Snakes in Space.
You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era and improv news stories, because while Samuel L. Jackson might have had it with those motherfucking snakes on his motherfucking plane, we're here to talk about some motherfucking snakes on a motherfucking spaceship. So everybody strap in. We're about to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
Mike.
And we were Raised by Rentals. Mike! Do you remember in 2006 when you could go online and send your friends phone calls from Samuel L. Jackson promoting the instant cinematic classic that is Snakes on a Plane?
I do. I remember very particularly your wife doing that to me while you and I were working on Bort issue 1. And I was so fucking confused.
Oh man, that was so fun. I tried to see if that still worked, and unfortunately it doesn't. The service is offline, but I was like, oh man, that'd have been so cool to like record a clip for the episode.
That was really funny. I pranked so many people at my job with that.
Right? I don't even remember what it said exactly, but it was like, this is Samuel L. Jackson. Like, hey, Mike, go see my new movie, Snakes on a Plane, starting like opening Friday or whatever it was.
It would start off because you had to put the person's name in. So like as soon as you said hello, Samuel Jackson would say your name. So like I was like, hello, they were like, Mike. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I got something to talk to you about. It's like, okay. Like you're just kind of like confused, like who the fuck is this? I was like, I want you to take your friend, and then it would say whoever it was that put the message to go see snakes on a motherfucking plane.
Oh God, that's so awesome.
Yeah, that was a really funny thing.
Well, what's really funny now is that I said all that because it was hilarious, but it has nothing to do with the episode today. Because we are not here to talk about snakes on a plane, but we are going to talk about some snakes in space.
Yeah.
And that's because we are here, as we had alluded to back in the first episode of this season, season 4. Our first episode was Escape from Earth, which was our installment, a third installment in the Escape from New York / Escape from LA franchise from John Carpenter, where we tried to imagine what a third movie might be based on some comments, that the original creators had made about maybe going to Mars or like going to space or whatever. So we did our Escape from Earth episode, and at the end of that, we dropped in a little Easter egg. I guess we kind of have to spoil it here, but we dropped in a cameo appearance from one Marion Cobretti.
That's right.
The Sylvester Stallone like action cop hero from Cobra, and way back in, I think must have been season 2, we did our own sequel to that movie, Cobra 2: Assignment Miami Beach, where we sent the badass leader of the zombie squad from LA down to Miami Beach to protect the president's daughter.
On spring break.
And he was and we had Sinbad tag along with him as like the comedic sidekick, and oh my God, it was hilarious.
It's still one of my favorite episodes. It really is. I had so much fun with that one.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely top 20, if not top 10 of all the episodes that we've done. And this is episode 97 currently recording. So we've done quite a few, but that definitely is up toward the top. And one thing I'm not sure that we've done yet, and I don't think so, is now we're going to do a follow-up to not one, but 2 of our own previous episodes that were unrelated to each other, but now we're bringing them together.
Yeah, I don't think we've done this as of yet. So this is a Raised by Rentals first. But it makes perfect sense because one, these two have teamed up before, these two actors in Tango and Cash, and that's actually kind of how we got on this topic to begin with, way before we did Escape from Earth. I know Tango and Cash had gotten brought up at some point. I don't know if it was like a Tango and Cash 2 or like something in there, but that had been mentioned
Hmm.
before. So once it was like, oh yeah, let's do Escape from Earth, we're like, it would be funny. Like, how can we work Sylvester Stallone in there? And then we both started talking about like Tango and Cash in space.
Hmm.
And like that was kind of like the hook. And it was like, well, yeah, but if we do like Snake Plissken and Marion Cobretti, they're still kind of the Tango and Cash characters, because like Cash was like the badass cop that wasn't going to listen to no authority, like fuck all y'all, like he's going to do what he wants. And then Tango was just like, the by the books but badass officer played by Stallone. So again, Stallone played Cobra in the exact same way, where he was the badass officer.
Yeah,
And Snake Plissken fucking hates authority, so it works.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, to your point, I don't remember exactly like where it all came from, but we did, let on at the end of the Escape from Earth episode that, we had kind of orchestrated the whole thing just to make that Tango and Cash connection. Like it was the whole reason, at least in my mind, it was the whole reason why we chose Escape from Earth as the opening episode of season 4. Like we could have started
Hmm.
with any number of great ideas. So it was like, well, what was so special about that one that we wanted to start the season off with it? Other than it was just like hopefully something exciting, like an exciting action movie that people would want to get into and be familiar with. But it was also because we were like, if we're gonna do this, we gotta like lay the groundwork early so that later on in the season we can go back and revisit it and do the fucking Tango and Cash in space crossover. It's so stupid.
It's literally just us playing with toys in a toy box.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So not to belabor the point too much, we're talking about, as we mentioned already, Cobra, 1986. Sylvester Stallone plays Marion Cobretti. It's a very straightforward action movie. So violent and in your face that it's almost a horror movie. We talked a lot about it when we did our Cobra 2 episode, and yeah, highly recommend you guys go back and check that one out in the back catalog. That one is freaking hilarious. I listen to it sometimes just to crack myself up, and it's like our podcast, but it was
Right?
so funny.
Same.
Um, and then, of course, there was Escape from New York all the way back in 1981, and Escape from LA 15 years later in 96, where Kurt Russell plays Snake Plissken. And as you pointed out, it took me way too long to realize that, wait, one's a cobra, one's snake, they're snakes in space. And it's like, God damn it, how did I not make this connection before? Oh, man. Yeah, and so that
Oh, but
and then we had Snake Plissken come back for our Escape from Earth episode, and so it's some kind of vague future time. I mean, yeah, they tried to set up a timeline in those Escape from New York and L.A. movies. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it probably won't even. Well, it'll make even less sense now that we're bringing Cobra into it. But you know what? Hand wavy, movie's got a movie bullshit. I don't care. We need these characters to meet.
well, I'll put it this way. Okay, so we know that Escape from LA, it takes place in the early 2000s, like the earthquake that knocked LA off it made it its own little separate colony, was, I want to say, like 2000, 2001. And then the film itself takes place in 2013. So now we set up an Escape from Earth. At the end, we talk about how the when we see Marion Cobretti, like when there's the transmission coming in, that they lost contact with Earth 5 years ago.
Okay.
So you figure if these ships launched right after the Sword of Damocles situation, like where it was like the elites escape, because
Hmm.
it's got to be people with power that escapes, as we set up in Escape from Earth, how it was like government programs. So you figure this would have to take place roughly like 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. So still in our past, but the future of Hollywood.
Yeah, yeah, and you think about Marion Cobretti, 1986. I don't know how old Cobra is in that movie. I mean, he's got to be at least in his 30s, like if not his 40s. I don't remember how old Sylvester Stallone was at the time. So let's look that up. Let's find out.
Well,
Uh,
Stallone is in his 70s now, I
let's see.
believe.
So he was born in 1946. So in 1986, when Cobra came out, he was 40 years old. So if he was 40 years old,
Damn.
yeah. So let's just say let's just call it 2020 for easy math. Uh, yeah, that's like 34 years later. I said easy math, and then I immediately fucked up the math. Yeah, so he would be like 70, yeah, in his 70s, like depending if it's like 2018, 2020, so we're talking like 73, 74, 75, something like that. So okay, yeah, he could still be around. He could be like the tough old guy like he is in Tulsa King.
Well, you know what? I say this, like, we never name the ages of these characters in the respective movies anyway. So whatever. Let's just say he's an old man. Maybe he was in cryo sleep for a couple years. I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah, who knows? Or maybe in the future where life sucks on Earth to the point where there was like this huge plague. What do we call it? Like the Infinity Virus?
The Infinity Virus.
Yeah, and there was like mass poverty and hunger and people fighting over food reserves. That was all happening on Earth, but what we had revealed in Escape from Earth is that yeah, there were the elite sort of the planet escaped into space, and at the end of the episode, Snake Plissken and his crew, the characters we came up with, Dallas and Church and the other people who had escaped, they had come across this space station that, while we never got really into the space station to see what was inside. The concept there was that like these were all like the government leaders, the rich people, all the people who could have left. So for all we know, they
Mhm.
could have been sitting up in space with like fucking like longevity medication and shit, like just living forever while people down on Earth
Right.
were dying left and right, and they didn't care.
And I mean, I still say we could just go hand wavy and be like, they
Mhm.
never really named how old Snake and Cobra were in the movie, so fuck it. It's just
Yeah, fuck it. Let's
this
move on.
movie takes place after those movies. They're old.
Yeah,
They're not so old that they're like Gran Torino, like
yeah, yeah,
Clint
right.
Eastwood, like get off my lawn. Like they're not that old. Uh,
Yeah, so it should still be pretty cool. Yeah, so now we have, like I said, because after Escape from Earth, that just like what I said a minute ago, we have Snake Plissken who escaped from Earth with Dallas, who had been this like gladiator style like pit fighter who kind of turned on the leader down on the Earth colony in California, which was President King Caesar. um,
yes.
and President King Caesar went down in flames with one of the other characters, Canker, I think. And
Yep.
so we have Dallas, who is like this, like, pit fighter, sort of a Gina Carano looking kind of a woman. And then we've got
Hmm.
Church, who was this, badass, like, multi gunslinger guy with, like, guns all over the place, but he's also like a preacher. Um,
Hmm.
and so now
He's
Snake.
one of the Hospitalers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. The Hospitallers. They were these like monks that were. Um, everybody was supposed to. They were like neutral territory in their like little Hospitaller towns, and the monks were supposed to be able to like go from community to community and like trade food and transport people without like being attacked. And that was
Hmm.
one of the issues that got Snake involved in this President King Caesar business, was that he had been utilizing the sanctuary of the Hospitallers, but like he just he couldn't leave it alone when he saw there were people that were attacking Hospitallers and like kind of breaking the unspoken rules of the society that they had set up. um,
Well, and I think one thing that is going to help us in this episode that is important to mention is that the Hospitallers are a collective of like different religious groups.
mhm.
So it was like, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, all of that. It was like basically everyone kind of agreed like the apocalypse happened. The end times came. The end of the world, is done. So no more religious infighting. Like we need to work together as people. And so like they became kind of this homogenized like just new world order of monks, which is something that I think is going to not go over well with the people that we're going to be dealing with in this episode.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it would make sense since we're talking about the president or the government leaders, whatever. And I'm just thinking
Hmm.
of like the former president of the United States, not President King Caesar, but
Right, right.
if it was the former president, that would be the forever president from Escape from L.A.,
LA.
right? And that
Yep.
wasn't that Uncle Ben, the guy that that played him? Wasn't it?
Yeah,
What's his
it
name?
was.
I gotta look it up.
I forget his,
It's Cliff
but he's
something.
and he was based on Pat Robinson, uh, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah, the preacher. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so that would make sense if up on the space station, maybe the forever president of the United States is now the forever president of space, and
Yep.
he's in charge of everything. And he was a Christian supposedly, but of course very violent, very
Yeah.
racist, very greedy, basically like how you see a lot of like Christian nationalists act now.
Exactly.
And
It's the people. It's literally the Christian equivalent of like ISIS, where it's like you have these people who use their religion as a shield and a cudgel to make people do what they want.
yeah, yeah,
What now? Granted, one uses extreme violence. I'm not saying that Christian nationalists are like terrorists.
hmm
In some cases, they can be. But I'm just saying, that's the same concept of like, oh no, 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 my religion, I'm going to beat it into you and shield every criticism using my religion.
yeah,
And it's like that goes against if you claim to be following your belief structure, you're kind of failing. But whatever.
yeah.
That's not the topic of conversation.
No, no. Well, I mean, I think it's going to lead into the episode though, so I think it's appropriate to mention it. But yeah, I think I'm not saying anything bad about Christianity as a religion as a
Oh no,
whole,
no,
but
no.
yeah, but there's but you know what I'm talking about. There's a Christian nationalist movement going on uh,
Absolutely.
right now, especially in the U.S. but other parts of the world. And again, it's where it becomes more about control. It's more about people
Yes.
who have this idea of what a Christian nation is supposed to be, with a certain concept of marriage and like how to raise kids and gender and teaching religion in schools. And of course, Christianity is the only religion, and the Bible is the history, and all this other stuff that they become so rigid that they become anti science, or they become
Yep.
anti any kind of like progress. Hell, people who tell me they're anti pronoun, I mean, that just tells me that you're anti intelligence, dumbass, because it's just a type of word, it's a piece of
I,
grammar.
exactly. But no, I mean, and it's the same thing. Like I've had this not to get into a religious conversation, but I've had the same conversation before with other Christians about about Islam. Like I was
Mhm.
like, I know plenty of Muslims that are not like the horrible shit you see in the news. Like they're
Yeah.
peaceful, calm, loving people. Anyone can take a religion and turn it for something evil.
hmm
And that's the sad truth of the matter. That's why I love the Hospitallers so much, because we took the idea of taking all of these religions and being like, no, take the people who actually practice the peaceful part of their religion, who use it as a guide for their life, how to live their life, not to tell everyone else how to live their life, but how they guide their life. And the Hospitallers came together and created this sanctuary for mankind. And I feel like at the heart of it, that's what most religions are supposed to do, is
hmm
be hospitable to your fellow man. you know
Right? They're all supposed to be about love, yeah. But of course,
exactly.
from this nationalist perspective, it becomes about control
Hmm.
and power. And unfortunately, it also means that usually the people who scream the loudest about morality, like the forever president in Escape from LA, are the same type of
Hmm.
people who don't live that type of morality whatsoever for themselves. Like these are not the people, people who say, don't cheat on your wives are the ones who are cheating on their wives. The people who say, don't judge lest you be judged, they're the people who judge the most.
Yep.
And so
100%.
that's the environment that we're getting into, that Snake and Dallas and Church are flying into. Is you have all you have this Christian nationalist guy, this forever president, who's now going to be in charge of all of these world leaders. And while I'm sure there's going to be conflict, if he can rule the space station with the same kind of iron fist that he ran the United States with toward the end, it wouldn't be hard for him to just impose, his sort of, I can't, like, theocracy, or
Hmm.
there's another word for that, where it's like, the religion becomes sort of like a dictatorship. Um, anyway, so the question then becomes, why is Cobra there? Because we know that Marion Cobretti is there because he answered, or he communicated with Snake Plissken on the spaceship that he was on. And you'll have to remind me, because I don't remember if it was just one spaceship or if we had agreed on it was like a whole 12, like that 12 tribes of Israel, like Exodus kind of a thing. Was it 12
Well,
ships?
yeah, that was the concept, was that because we mentioned it in Escape from New York, how or Escape from Earth, that in the God, was it the Genesis sphere? It was like basically an idea for
hmm
re-terraforming another planet, or
Yeah.
re-terraforming Earth. after the Infinity virus wiped out all the undesirables. So the concept was that the government had a contingency plan if they ever lost. Because keep in mind, forever president, his whole thing was, I will rule until death. So and I like the idea of the longevity medication because, like, of course, if he's got power, he ain't going to want to give it up. So he's going to want to stick around. Um,
Hmm.
so they had this whole plan of basically 12 ships that, were going to escape from Earth and connect to like a space station that was in orbit. So picture, like, the way I'm picturing is like a fidget spinner. So like
Hmm.
a top in the middle, so that would be like the core docking station, and then 12 ports around with these massive fucking ships that were meant to hold hundreds of people, would be connecting to the docks to making one big space station with the ships and the
Hmm.
docking station. And then, since the forever president was the one who spearheaded this, I mean, he probably has the most military, the most power, the best of the best, and which is why he probably rules with an iron fist up there. So we figure maybe it's not all other world governments. Maybe there's some other world governments, some of his allies, people who kind of fell in line with him. But also, like, we would have the elites, the billionaire class, like the people who are wealthy enough to buy their way, the smartest people, so the people that could provide
Hmm.
something scientifically or medically on board the ship. So all of those people left Earth when the sword of Damocles hit. It was like their contingency program was launch the ships, and for whatever reason the ship that was under Vegas never launched. So maybe there was too much chaos, like people couldn't get to it. But that's the ship that Snake, Dallas, and Church, and all of those monks, and the some of the workers from Vegas, because remember there was the President King Caesar's people who were setting up the ship for Exodus. So there were people on board that ship when the president and Kanker got thrown out.
Yeah. Hmm.
So there's I would say there's probably a good 100 or more people on that ship that left Earth. So it's on its way. It's autopiloting toward well, let's just call it the Genesis, whatever, like the new space station that's out there.
Yeah. Sure.
It's on its way out there. Now, why would Cobretti be there? That's simple. In the first Cobra movie, we see what a fucking badass he is, and by the second movie, our movie, we set it up where it's like he was such a badass and worked his way up through the ranks that eventually, the Secret Service wanted him. He worked for the president, and he continues to be a badass. He saves the president's daughter. He foils, the bad guys' plots. So he's gonna be around, and that took place in the '90s in our in universe. So you figure, like, he probably wouldn't retire yet from helping out the president. And then when the forever president comes around, now, Cobretti might not agree with everything, but keep in mind that forever president promoted clean living and, upstanding moral fiber and all
Right.
that. And this is all stuff that Marion Cobretti was all for. So maybe he was kind of not seeing how psychotic this person was. Maybe he had his reservations, but his sense of loyalty and duty outweighed his reservations about that. So that's something we're going to have to overcome when Snake gets there, is is Cobretti going to be a turncoat on the president, or are they going to clash? Like, well, we'll find out. But I really think that, of course, Cobretti would be like one of the Secret Service members that was brought on to like protect the president and his family. And again, the president's daughter clearly didn't go like this president's daughter,
No. Yeah.
because we saw how that ended in Escape from LA.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was a different president. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I hate to, keep going on, but I feel like setting this groundwork makes a lot of sense. That when we get into, the plot, it's like we're not having to stop and figure out people's motivations. But yeah, I definitely think this makes
Mhm.
sense. You think about a guy like Cobra, he was again very really into clean living for himself, but he really didn't mind bucking authority. But he was still a
Yeah.
cop at the end of the day. He was trying to do the right thing. He just didn't give a shit about following the rules. So I could see him being the kind of guy who would be like, I don't give a shit what, the president is doing. Like, he's working for the Secret Service or whatever at this point, right? After the assignment at Miami Beach. So I don't think that he would really be
Mhm.
caring so much what the president was doing because he would be more concerned with like, well, I'm still going to take down the bad guys. Like in this case, it would be like counterfeiters and shit like that, like the Secret Service takes care of. And I feel like, again, because he doesn't really care about authority, he I don't think that he would get that involved. It would just be like whatever the president can do, whatever the president's going to do. I'm just going to be over here like beating up bad guys. And then
Hmm.
he gets roped into going along with the president, along with other Secret Service guys, up to the space station. And now he's up there, and it's like of course you're going to leave because it's like self-preservation. But he's also kind of stuck. So yeah, when we meet him in the actual story here, like we can decide, do we want to have him just be some kind of like loyal, like sycophant type, or do we want him to just be like, hey man, I'm just doing my job and like not really care about the guy that much,
I think okay. So let's just jump in because here's what I'm thinking for Cobra. Knowing what we know about him and knowing the situation, it's like even if he had his reservations about the forever president on Earth, it's like he sees here's a man who had a contingency plan to save mankind. So to get everybody off of Earth, because remember, he's not going to know the inner workings of like the whole Infinity Virus project and like the whole wiping out the undesirables. He's just going to know this is a way to keep mankind from dying out. Like we are going to,
hmm
we have this group of people. We made sure to take people from all over the world, and we are going to go back. Like once Earth is, hospitable again,
hmm
we are going to go back. We are going to re-terraform it. We are going to make it livable again. Like we will save mankind. Mankind will live on. So and again, the forever president is going to have full rule on that space station. So there isn't going to be people bucking against him. It's just going to be people falling in line. So in his point of view, he's going to be like, well, yeah, I mean, this guy makes sure that everyone's taken care of. This guy is making sure that we're all safe. Like he's going to bring mankind back from the brink of extinction. Like, yeah, he's a good dude. What are you talking about? And then he's going to have to see from Snake's point of view what happened in the wake of his leaving. Like what did he leave behind? What did he set off? That's what's
hmm
we're gonna have to convince Cobra, like, hey, the guy that you're working for that you're just kind of turning a blind eye to, like, hey, he's a good dude. Yeah, he tried to wipe out everybody that wasn't for him.
right,
And
yeah.
then it's gonna be like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a second.
All right, so let's get to that, right? So again, the movie Escape from Earth, our fake movie, ends with Cobra is communicating with this like Exodus vehicle, whatever you call it, this big spaceship or one of several. Um, you know, Here, this is kind of how the movie should start. Like we pick up directly after Escape from Earth, just like Halloween 2 picks up directly after Halloween. We just keep on going. And so, yeah, let's have Snake. He's going to be suspicious about like, or at least he's going to be apprehensive about like what kind of people are we going to find in the spaceship. Of course, this was kind of the point. Like the Infinity Virus is going crazy on Earth. We got to get out of here, get on the ships, try to save as many people as we can. Because as cynical as Snake is, he's still kind of a superhero, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So, of course, they're going to dock. And we this will be a great way to really start the movie because within a few minutes, we can have the ship docks, the ship door goes up, one of those like airlock doors go up, and we can have Snake Plissken just jump out of the airlock with like a fucking machine gun, like just ready to blow some fools away because he doesn't know what to expect, and then maybe it's Church who's like, whoa, like slow down there, partner, and
Right.
there's just like there's guards maybe standing around, and maybe that's what it was. Like these guards are standing around, and Snake jumps out of the airlock with his gun at the ready, and these guards are maybe they all go. They don't have guns because guns in space like that doesn't mix well. I mean, I know we've seen a lot of action
Well,
movies, but like I don't think you would give every guard like a machine gun. So maybe they just reach for their like cattle prod style Billy club weapons or something like that.
okay, so here's what I'm picturing for the opening. Exactly kind of like what you're saying. Like we pick up right where the last movie left off. So we pick up with the communication of like, of Cobra talking to the ship that Snake is on, and basically like telling them, prepare for docking. Like, and they're gonna we're gonna pan out. We'll see the ship like floating up to this massive space station, and then like it connecting to the space station, and then inside we're gonna see Snake and Church and Dallas and all of the fucking refugees, like kind of not knowing what to prepare for. And let's like have Snake have one of them big fucking like Colt pythons that he's always carrying around with like the laser scope on it, like the sighting.
Yeah, there you go.
Have the airlock open and have him go to draw his gun, like pull his gun, and have maybe Church knock it down, like like no, that's not the way to go, like that's not that's not the path, my friend, like kind of something like that. And we see these almost like stormtrooper looking guards, not like Star Wars, but like white armored suits, kind of like that, but like a security helmet, and like picture a riot shield, like a
Hmm.
clear riot shield with like a weird glue, like blue glow around it,
Hmm.
almost like it's got LEDs in it. Because what I'm thinking is we're gonna see, like, have them be like, come with us and all that, and we'll have monitors where we see the forever president like welcoming them aboard. So Snake's gonna be like, motherfucker, because he already went up against this guy, right?
Yep.
So now here's where we can get rid of the guns in space. Have Snake go to shoot at one of the guards and have the bullet literally absorb into like an energy field on the shield.
Oh,
Like it
nice.
just
Yeah,
stops it cold.
that'd be cool.
And he's just like, what the fuck? And then have him shock the shit out of Snake and drop him like with the cattle prods. So when we can come back to these characters, we can see Snake and Church and Dallas and all that in a holding cell. So like on like now they're on board, they're being held. And we could have like the guards basically telling them like, look, we have to check you, make sure that you're not sick. We're a confined community up here. We don't know
Hmm.
what you're coming on board with. So it's almost ambiguous. We don't know that they're gonna do anything bad yet, but like obviously Snake's not gonna trust him because he already saw the forever president on the fucking screen. He's like, fuck that guy.
Yep.
So
Right.
yeah, so I feel like get everybody off the ship, get him into like a massive, like I'm just picturing everything's like stark white with like blue highlights, like a very future vibe, like 70s future vibe,
Right. Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, have them like getting tested. Maybe they're all getting their blood taking, making sure that they're not infected with the infinity virus or any other diseases. And I think it would be funny if like one of the scientists, like they take Church's blood and he has like tons of things wrong with him and they're just like, how are you alive? And he's like, by the grace of God, I tell you. Just
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, we gotta have. Yeah, do we have like Snake like come to, because I feel like he's got to have a face to face with Cobra pretty soon. Like I
oh yeah,
really want to draw that out. Yeah,
absolutely.
maybe
Yeah,
he comes to, and again, maybe he wakes up and there's like doctors around. He jumps up and he panics and he sees like maybe Church is there, like, whoa partner, like, and he sees, he's like, maybe Snake sees someone like taking a vial of his blood and he like knocks it out of his hand because he's been like knocked out and not really realizing what's going on, while Dallas and Church have been like, no, it's cool, like they welcomed us. But
right.
we got to have like Cobra like march into the room with his like little cadre of Secret Service guys, and like come face to face with Snake.
Yeah. So like, I like the idea of having Snake wake up like while they're extracting his blood and be like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Just like
Right.
smacking it around. But like we should have Dallas and Church like in the room with him. Like we could see like a bunch of people like they're in what looks like a prison cell, like where
Hmm.
it's like there are bars, but it's there's couches, there's all, or like bedding and stuff for the people, like all the monks and the refugees are all sitting on there, kind of waiting to be examined by the medical officers. But we could see like maybe Dallas Church and a couple of the monks have already been examined, and they're sitting nearby at a table with like, they got like a blanket around their shoulders, like they're clean, like
Hmm.
they've clearly been showered, and they're like drinking like water and got like little biscuits or something. They're like, no, it's okay, Snake, calm down, like trying to. So they're convinced they're saved.
Hmm.
Snake's going to be odd man out here. So yeah, so to your point, in comes Cobretti with like a couple more guards and have him, want to know like how did they get the ship? How did they get off of Earth? Because they clearly were not the people meant to be on that ship. Like what happened, to the, maybe it was going to be like, I don't know, uh, Mill Gates or something like that.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be his ship, but he never showed up. Like what happened, and it's like, we could do well, we don't have to belabor the point here, but we'll have like a quick back and forth between like Snake, Church, Dallas, and Cobra about like, how they got the ship. That
Yeah.
there was, like maybe you guys don't know what's been going on Earth, but it's, it's a wasteland down there. It's a war zone. And, like basically this new president popped up and he wrested power from everybody. And, he unleashed the Infinity Virus, and have Cobra be like, what would the Infinity Virus with that? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm picturing like Church being the one who's like, "Oh yeah, yeah," he's telling the whole story, like, "Oh yeah, we were down on Earth, and there was this President King Caesar, like Joker," and Church is just very uh, conversational, and he's perfectly happy, like, "Oh
mhm.
yeah, we're saved and we're fine, like we're fine, we're just lucky to be out of danger." And I think Dallas is like maybe kind of quiet, kind of reserved, like going along with it, but like doesn't quite trust it just yet, and but of course Snake doesn't trust anything, every
No.
time Cobra is like, so tell me how you got the ship, like where'd you get the launch codes, or whatever. And of course Church is like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that was our buddy Kanker," and like blah 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 blah, and then every time Church is just jumping in, just trying to have a conversation, Snake is just like trying to shush him, like ain't none of his business, something like that,
Oh my God. Dude, follow me here for a second. So like, I love this because we have Cobra like talking directly to Snake, being like, "So yeah, so how'd you end up on that ship? That wasn't yours," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then have Church be like, "Well, there, friend, I can explain that." And just cinematically, I picture like zooming in on Church's face, and he starts telling the story, and we move his head to the side of the screen, so it's like half on the screen, and then on the other part of the screen, we're seeing scenes from our last film.
Oh,
So he's
nice, nice.
explaining like, yeah, there was, the war busted out and blah blah. We see like an image of like the gangs warring, and then we see an image of the hospitalers, like the
Hmm.
camps growing, and like the food service and the medical services that the hospitalers set up, and then we see like the rise of King Caesar, or President King Caesar in Vegas, and
Hmm.
then the unleashing of the Infinity Virus. So we get like a quick recap, but during that, like because again, I love the idea of Church smiling, telling the story, and then like every few seconds have like the scene get wiped, and you just see Snake there going, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
Stop talking.
Yeah.
Like he don't need to know that. Like that kind of
Yeah, like
thing. So just for a little comic relief there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That'd be hilarious. Yeah, and then of course, and this is going to be like that's the Tango and Cash relationship that we talked about, right? Because we haven't really, talked much about Tango and Cash the movie, because it's not we're not like adapting that or trying to do a sequel. It was just the idea of like you get Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, and they're both these like badass like macho action men, and but like in Tango and Cash, you had Stallone, who was Ray Tango, Kurt Russell, who was Gabe Cash, and like right from their first interaction, they're arguing. And but their
Hmm.
their their arguments are all like this tough guy banter. It's like they're trying to out macho the other guy and out cop the other guy, and you could tell that they're both having fun with it, but they're also both like really serious, you know.
Right. Exactly. And that would 100% be the same thing here.
Yeah, it would be hilarious, right? Where Cobra is just he was like, "I'm just trying to ask some questions, find out what happened," and this, whatever. Like it's like he's very like good natured again, and again, I don't know if you've seen Tulsa King, but I'm picturing Stallone in Tulsa King, where he kind of has this
Hmm.
attitude, where he's this like mob boss, but he's very down to earth, and he's realistic. And then I just feel like Snake is this, he's just overreacting because he's like, "Don't tell him nothing. We can't trust any of these people until we find out what's really going on," you know.
Well, because I mean, to be fair, Snake is totally an anarchist. He hates all authority, and like I said, he saw the forever president's face, so he's like, "Not this bitch again." Like he's ready for a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So now it comes to the question of like, well, so like, so what? Like, what are we doing? Like, what's kind of like, what's the plot of this movie gonna be? What is Snakes in Space about?
So what I think we should do next is have like, so we have the whole backstory given to, so Cobra knows the backstory. Anyone joining us for the first time knows the backstory. Like again, if this was a film, we would have to do since it's part three, we got to do the
Hmm.
flashback. Or technically, it's part four of one franchise and three of another. So
Yeah,
we have to do the Freddy versus Jason, Werewolf versus
yeah,
Frankenstein,
yeah.
Alien versus Predator, little flashback connective tissue sequence. Um, so have after they've all been examined and all that, like we have, maybe Cobra like, all right, well, I'm gonna go talk to the boss. I'll be back. Like have him, he takes off, and then have Snake, Church and Dallas and the others like kind of waiting in this holding area, just eating their food, like they're in new comfortable clothes, like they've
Mhm.
all been given kind of like, I'm picturing like a jumpsuit, like a generic
Yeah,
space station jumpsuit. So
exactly.
they're all in fresh clothing, and like everyone seems happy except for Snake and Dallas. Like Dallas seems a little uncomfortable. Snake is like just not trusting any of it. And maybe we could even have a little back and forth here where Snake's like, so what are you thinking? And have her be like, well, I've been at the seat of power a couple times and it always looks bad for everybody else. That
Mhm.
type of thing. Like where, because she's been in close. Remember, she was a gladiator. She
Yep.
fought
Mhm.
for President King Caesar. So like in order for her to have a cushy life, she had to do bad things.
Mhm.
So she's going to be a little like hesitant about this, and have Church basically being like, oh, you got to believe the best in everybody, my friend. Like they brought us aboard, they fed us, they clothed us. In my book, that's hospitable. He's just like
Yeah.
cracking his knuckles, and he's happy. So then have some of the guards come back in and have them basically like point at Church, or point at Dallas, Snake, and like maybe two of the monks. Be like, you, and you come with us.
Mhm.
So now it's like, Snake's like, I ain't going anywhere, like that type of thing. And have like one of the guards like take out some kind of like fucking like almost like plasma shackles. Like I'm picturing shackles with like a beam between them.
Yeah.
Be
Mhm.
like, you're coming with us or you're coming with us. And he's just like, all right, lead the way. The gravelly, like, you motherfuckers type of thing. So he's following behind, and they are led to the Forever President's office. So
Nice.
have them, meet up with the and immediately like Snake is just looking like fucking daggers. And like the monks don't know what the fuck's going on. They're just like, yeah, that's isn't that the president of the United States from before?
Yeah.
And Dallas is like, maybe a little bit cagey. And have the president, stand up from around behind his desk, and like, he's got guards everywhere. Like he's just,
Mhm.
fully decked out. Maybe there's like a fucking force shield between like the people, like the group, and where the president and his like two of his guards are. Like they're behind the desk and there's like a
Sure.
shield in front of them. And have him just like stand up and be like, I need to thank you, Snake. Like without your help, I would have never gotten where I wanted to be. And have him like start explaining that like the plan was always to use the infinity virus to wipe out all of the undesirables of Earth.
Mhm.
He's like, I just needed a reason. You ignited that, or like you started that. You ignited that fuse
Mhm.
with the sword of Damocles taking out all of the world's power. I was able to convince everyone that we needed to leave, and with us being gone, we were able to unleash our plan. That type of thing. So now Dallas and everyone's like, what the fuck? And at that point, this is when we could have the guards maybe like take out one of the monks, just like literally murder in cold blood. Like if you doubt my control here, and have them just like fucking shoot one of the monks, just murder him.
Oh shit.
you
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
um so now like Dallas, the other monk, and Snake are like, they're freaking out. Like Snake's like, you son of a bitch, that like maybe he says something like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, so, and like have the guards like come at him, beat him down with the fucking whatchamacallit, the cattle prod sticks that you were talking about. Like
Yeah.
they beat the shit out of Snake with it. Dallas tries to stop them. They start beating Dallas, and have the president maybe even say something like, stop toying with her, just finish this, and have one of them shoot Dallas in the face, just literally take her out. So now we have a sacrificial lamb, like Dallas has been murdered in cold blood by the president, gonna kill off the other monk, and then of course they're gonna blame Snake. They're gonna say things got violent.
Oh. Mhm.
Snake
Yep.
flipped out in the president's office, and now he needs to be held in captivity with the violent ones of the space station.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's slow down a little bit. There should be some mention, and I just think that this would be funny. Some mention of like, oh, they kind of explain things to the the forever president, or maybe he already has been debriefed by Cobra, of everything that's kind of going on. And maybe he can say
Mhm.
something too, like, like, I can't believe you guys put up with, like, with little Donnie for so long. Like, meaning, Donnie, who's Donnie? Like President King Caesar. It's like, and he's just like, It's like the Forever President knew. He was like, oh, like that moron from Las Vegas. I can't believe he got in charge. Like, what kind of like like rabble are left behind on Earth that you put that guy in charge? Uh, and
I love it.
yeah, and of course, like the president should like even though he's behind this like this plasma wall or whatever it is. Like he should definitely eye Dallas up and down. He's kind of eyeing her like, okay. They mentioned in the movie Snatch, where there's a scene where near the beginning when we first see Brad Pitt fight the bare knuckle boxer Gorgeous George, but he kind of accuses Tommy of like you don't bring a guy this big to a negotiation unless you're trying to say something, and it's like,
Hmm.
and so you can see the president is kind of eyeing her up and down like I see what's going on here, like you've brought the muscle, and and maybe right off the bat he's kind of noticing that like that means the church must be the brains because we know that that Snake to the president, Snake isn't the brains of the operation, right? So but
Right.
I think I think a good actor can kind of pull off like okay, we're going to kind of size everybody up, we're going to take down one of the monks in a very like, oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration kind of a way.
Hmm. Yes.
Back to quoting Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, exactly right. And then Snake tries to like bust out of there, like or go after the president or whatever. They get into this little scuffle. Like Dallas is coming to the rescue. Of course, she's just laying on fools, just taking people out left and right until the president is just like, stop toying with her, take her out. Snake is, you can see he's just like gutted by that, but Church even more so. Church is just gonna be like, no, like you bastards or whatever. Like maybe Church even says something like, like I'm gonna send all you motherfuckers to hell, and it's like so out of character. It's like, but I think Church should kind of like break away. Like, of course, Snake and Church are going to try to like run away. They're going to get Snake and go lock him up. But I feel like Church, being the wily guy that he is, he's going to like slip away and like, jump through an air vent or something and like, oh, fuck,
Well, remember, Church wasn't there. Church was left behind. It was Dallas,
oh,
Snake, and
yeah,
the two
yeah,
monks.
yeah, you're
So
right.
basically, because Church is still keeping the calm from or keeping the rest of the refugees calm. Like he's
Yeah,
there, he thinks everything's great. So Snake is going to have to get him back on board later.
yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, I forgot we left Church behind. So never mind that part. But yeah, little Donnie.
Little Donnie, I love it. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
like I like the idea of like you said, like having it having the fight kind of drag out a little bit, and then have them kill Dallas, kill the two monks, and then basically beat the shit out of and shackle Snake, so they can even say to like because keep in mind the president is going to want to keep up appearances.
Hmm.
He isn't going to want to let everyone aboard the space station know what a violent prick he actually is. He's going to want to make it out to be like, no, 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 like I care about everybody. I
Hmm.
care about my people, just like he did in Escape from LA. Like he cares. Like he's only going to use the sword of Damocles when they're threatened. Like,
Hmm.
he actually cares about people. Um but Snake, just saw firsthand that fucking was a leopard doesn't change his spots type of thing.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
you know he's a fucking asshole. So they're gonna beat the shit out of him and throw him in the brig, and then we can get Cobra involved in this. So I think like have after we kill Dallas, kill the monks, drag Snake down to the brig, throw him in there. Maybe there's like a couple other dudes like shackled up, like long fucking beards, like they've been in there for a long time, like
Right.
guards that maybe dared to go against the president.
Hmm.
Um, that maybe they had something the president needs, so he didn't want to kill him, or maybe he's using them to test stuff on. So like they're all like fucked up and maybe like new cankers almost.
Yeah.
Um, like they've been testing. That's what we should do. They've been testing cures of the Infinity virus on them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because they probably eventually want to go back to Earth, but they can't until
Yeah.
they like purge it. So first they have to get rid of all the undesirables with the virus, but then they gotta get rid of the virus.
Yes. Because that's the thing. Remember, the virus only has like I forgot how much time we gave it in Escape from Earth, but we gave it does have a time sequence like where it only lasts for so long, but it constantly like it drives the host to infect more.
Hmm. Yeah.
So unless they're 100% sure that all of mankind is wiped out, there's a chance that the Infinity virus could still be running rampant. Plus, they're going to want to make sure that they have a cure for themselves in that event, that it maybe mutated, it changed, it gets back on, to some of the people that the president doesn't want to get sick. So maybe, yeah, they have these, anyone who has dared to question him or does something that he doesn't like gets thrown into the brig and gets experimented on. So Snake gets thrown in there. Maybe that's going to be the plan. They're going to try to infect him with the Infinity virus and then try to hit him with all their various cure methods to try to, like, see if they can find a cure. But it's an effective torture method.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Yeah, okay, so let's step back for a second and just think, like, big picture, because I feel like I don't necessarily think we need to go through every step of, like, the characters, like character arcs, as we go. I think it
Right.
might make more sense to just kind of like, let's just kind of like talk it out for a minute. So, let me just say a couple of things that are coming to my head, and just, tell me what you think. And so, yeah, I
Mhm.
think it makes sense. We put Snake in this situation where he's kind of being, in this environment where there's him and some other people who are being experimented on. You see some of the, like I said, some of these guards and other prisoners, as you mentioned. Maybe he starts seeing people from the group that came with him on the spaceship being brought in, but it's like only the people that are like, oh, that guy's missing a hand, or that person has a limp, or that person is disfigured. It's like,
Oh,
oh, it's like they're culling people out, and, like, like in a very sort of Nazi kind of a way, like, take out the
I was just gonna
crippled and the
say that
weak.
makes
Yeah.
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense for this guy.
And what I'm thinking is, like, I don't think that Cobra, if he knew about all of this, would go along with it, because he is
No.
like a good guy. So I think the president has been manipulating Cobra all along, knowing that I need this guy to be my right hand man, but I can't let him see what the left hand is doing. you know.
Right.
So maybe there's, I don't know if we want to introduce yet another character, but like a Surgeon General type of character, like Bruce Campbell played in Escape from L.A. But and we had a similar character in Escape from Earth, but like just somebody who's like in the lab, somebody who can be like a douchebag, like a creepy, like
Hmm.
Nazi doctor type. Um, Somebody very satisfying when Snake eventually kills that motherfucker. um,
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think Snake should break out of this environment, and then the president should, like, tell Cobra, like, see, I told you that guy was bad news. He's just up here to, like, sabotage the place, and, like, go get him. And then we kind of send Cobra on a snake hunt, and so that we can have this conflict where Cobra thinks he's doing the right thing because, oh, now we have this, like, this snake in the grass, like, on our spaceship. But Plissken, of course, is like, no, no, like, you don't get it. Like, we've been here for 5 minutes, and I've already killed my friend and started experimenting on people. Like, what the hell? And of course, Cobra's got to come to know that, but we need to have a sequence where they're like any good superhero crossover. First, they have to fight before they can become friends and team up, right?
Of course, of course. So let's break that down a little bit. So, like, to your point about the Surgeon General, I like that idea. So we'll have, Snake wakes up once again, like we see the guards drag him down into the cell, throw him in there, and there's like all these, like, I'm picturing a room with like little individual cages side by side, like, so like no one can like, you could reach in and grab the other person, but they're not in the same cell. And have, like, when Snake comes to, just see all these people looking all fucked up, like maybe they're shackled to the wall, some of them, to your point, are missing limbs, and then he recognizes some of the people from his own ship, and they were, and maybe, if when they were taken away from the group, like, they just told Church and the others, like, oh, we're bringing them for more medical examination, like, we're going to see if we can help them with, whatever this is, like, one of them has, like, is missing an eye, like, we're gonna see if we can help them, type of thing, like that type of thing. So they're keeping up appearances while they have this dungeon fucking lab, like, down in the brig. So Snake's gonna wake up, and we could have this doctor character, whoever, whatever we want to name him, we could have him kind of do the explanation for the audience and to Snake about how they're testing cures of the Infinity virus, and and many other little viruses that we've created over time. Like, almost like he's gleeful about it. Like, he's just enjoying poking and prodding and harming these people. So, to your point, we could have that going on, and then cut back to the president. Maybe we see Cobra and some of his guards come in and be like, "Hey, you wanted to talk to me," that type of thing, and have him be like, that the people who came aboard that ship are violent criminals, and have Cobra like, it seemed pretty cool to me, you know, like just kind of shy, like, you know, I got a chance to talk to them. They told me all about what happened over on Earth, you know, they're just scared people, that's all. And have him be like, no, you don't understand. They tried to attack me. We were forced to subdue them, you know, and we had to throw them in the brig like that. So now Snake is like, or Cobra is just like, fuck, you know, I was duped, you know. They had, and maybe he could show him the security footage just of like the guards fighting, not like what happened, not like the initial, you know, but he shows him like he, you know, clicks the camera on and we see like Dallas beating the shit out of two of the guards, you know, like maybe one of the monks like fucking roundhouse kicking a guard, Snake sucker punching another, and then like have him click it off and be like, they attacked us, we had no choice but to subdue them. And have Cobra just be like, oh damn, bad judge of character, I guess, you know, that
Right.
type of thing. But then cut back to the lab and have them go to do. So we have very much like the Bruce Campbell scene where he's about to infect Snake. And I don't know how we want to have Snake get out here, but you know, you said Snake needs to escape. So like, I don't know if we want to have like some kind of, you know, he bites the guy, headbutts the guy. Well, we need him to get out of his shackles and escape somehow.
Yeah, I think it would be, yeah, we should definitely take out this, Nazi scientist guy. Like, let's just take him out right away. It would be very satisfying for him to just be like the super evil guy who's like, I'm going to experiment on you and like take out your organs or whatever the hell. And then, but he is very overconfident, you know, very much where he's just like, there's nothing you can do about it. And so maybe it's as simple as like, you know, he goes and like sticks his fingers in Snake's mouth like he's checking like the teeth of a horse or something. Like, oh, let me check you out. And Snake just bites his goddamn finger off, and you know, and then you just see the guy holding up like, you know, or two fingers missing, just gushing blood. Snake like busts one of his arms out of like the leather strap because of course he did, because you know action stars would have like super strength, right? And he just like, you know,
Right.
have him just bust out of that like out of the strap, and then like, you know, have him grab the guy and just pull him back in, and you know start twisting his, you know, the hand that had just lost a couple fingers, have him start twisting his armor back around backwards and just tell him like, you know, force him to let him out of the other straps, like unlock everything while he's basically like breaking this dude's bloody arm in half. And then as soon as Snake gets out, just have him, you know, twist that arm all the way around till it like rips halfway off, and then, you know, have him stab him in the back of the neck with like a handful of syringes or something, just something like brutal.
Oh, yes. Okay. So yeah. I like this. So everything that you just said, but like he's still holding the guy by the arm. Like he's like, I let you go. Like, you know, let go of my arm, like my fucking arm. He's like freaking out, and have Snake shove him to the like one of the tables and grab. I love the idea of grabbing a handful of syringes and just slamming them in his back and pushing the plungers. And we just see the guy like, like just freaking out, like green goo coming from his mouth, like one of his eyes bulging. We could do that great effect where they do the pulsating like pus bubbles on
Oh
some
yeah.
like using the air bladders.
Nice.
And he's just like blah blah blah, just like falling down to the ground, like drooling and foaming and all that. And have Snake just like maybe he grabs like some kind of like surgical saw, like some kind of weapon that he could use,
Hmm.
like a fucking big bone saw or something, and like takes off running. So now he's got a melee weapon. He doesn't have a gun, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see Snake escape.
Yeah, okay. And so, and maybe like if there's other like people around, like patients in cages or whatever, like I feel like Snake might try to help. So instead, we have to see like guards who are like in like an observation room, like, oh shit, like they grab their weapons and it's like they're coming down the stairs. So Snake doesn't have time to stop and rescue anybody. He just like grabs what he can and like, you know, and hightails it out of there. Yeah, so he jumps
Mhm.
out, and then again we need to cut back to, you know, somebody's going to put Cobretti on high alert that like, you know, that varmint Snake just escaped and like we got to go after him, you know. And so like Cobretti's going to grab some of his like, you know, elite Secret Service guys, and that little squad is going to go you know, go into the like the depths of the space station to like go after Snake.
Go snake hunting.
That's
Yeah,
right.
no, I think what should happen is like we have, once he kills the doctor, and like, you know, we get that great effects scene. We could even have like maybe Snake sees, like he looks up and sees the camera watching him. We cut it, like we do a transition scene where we look at Snake looking at the camera, transition of the camera looking at Snake out to a monitor,
Mm-hmm.
see like some guard kind of like looking at a newspaper, not newspaper, but like looking at a book or something. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
he's looking at a nudie mag. He's
Yeah.
got his feet up on the desk. He's looking at a nudie mag, which would be contraband on, you know, the Forever President space
Mm-hmm.
station.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of hiding it, and have him look over and notice like a blinking red dot on the monitor, and look down and be like, "Oh shit," you know, and then hit an alarm button, and we hear alarms going off. Snake hightails it out of the doctor's office, and then cut back to the president's office where Cobretti is, you know, was getting the briefing from the president. And, you know, they both see the alarms, have him turn on the security camera, and we see Snake running down the
There you go.
hallway. Then have the security camera cut over, see the dead doctor like in the
Mm-hmm.
lab, and have the president look at Cobra and just be like, "You know what to do." And Cobra like, "All right, boys, let's go. We're gonna go on a snake hunt," you know.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So after Cobra's like going on a snake hunt, he starts heading down toward the bowels of the ship, and then, like, you know, maybe he's got like a wrist communicator. He's in like sci-fi gear. You know, he's like, "Hey, Bravo team, head down to the med bay and interrogate the refugees. See if they know where Plissken at." You know, that type of thing. And so we cut to Bravo team, like this other security team, heading down to the medical bay. They go in, we see Church and all the other refugees, like the monks and, you know, the service people of the ship and all that. They're, you know, they're wearing them jumpsuits, hanging out in that big, almost like containment field where they had
Mm-hmm.
the plasma wall up in front of them. And have, you know, Church being Church, he's like, "Well, howdy, friends." You know, he's like, "Hey, I have a question for you. You know, a couple of your buddies took some of our pals, and they said they were going to help them out with some of their ailments. Have you heard anything? And they're like, "Shut the fuck up!" And they're like, "You're in charge here, right?" And as soon as he starts talking like that, we see
Mm-hmm.
Church kind of like his whole demeanor shifts, like he's ready for a fight. But he's still smiling,
Okay.
but he's like, he now just prepared himself, you know, and like maybe kind of like side eyes some of the other monks, like to make sure they're paying attention.
Right. Like
um
you guys seeing this, right?
like, "You got my back," right? You know. And you know, have the lead guard like hit the shield down, grab Church, pull him out of the containment area, and then set the shield back up before anyone can do anything. And he's like, he's got Church. Now remember, they're just in the jumpsuits. They ain't got nothing they came on the ship with.
Mm-hmm.
So they got like no guns, no weapons, no armor, no nothing. So just like, you know, the generic sci-fi jumpsuit. And he's
Right.
like got him by the scruff of the neck, and he's like, "You listen to me. Plisken's," or, you know, like maybe yeah, "Plisken attacked the president. He's loose on the ship. I know you're friends with him. Where the fuck is he hiding?" You know, that type of thing. And if Church be like, "Well, Fran, there's no need for violence." And be like, maybe have you know, one of the other guards like slap him upside the head and just be like, "Answer the question."
Mm-hmm.
And have Church be like, "All right, it's got to be this way then," and just fucking headbutt the guard, right? And they're just like breaking his fucking nose, and like fucking karate kicks the other dude in the jugular.
Nice.
Just like, "Oh shit, Church didn't need guns. He's a fucking weapon."
Yeah. Right.
You know, have him open up the field, and the monks just rush out, and everyone starts beating the fuck out of Bravo team.
Nice. Yeah.
Like, showing that these guys, like, yeah, they're refugees from Earth, but they came from a fucking war zone. Like, of course they're gonna know how to fight, you know. But have like one of the guards escape out of the room, like freaking out, calling something on his comm, like, you know, yeah, "Prisoners escape." Prison, like maybe he knows they're like actually prisoners. You know,
Yep.
Cobra's kind of left in the dark.
Yeah. There's a
But have
shift from like guests to refugees to prisoners. Yeah, I like that.
exactly. And then like the door comes down, alarms start going off, and, you know, like Church and his men are just like, "Oh fuck," you know. And have like one of the monks come run up. And remember, the monks, the Hospitallers are a group of people from like all over.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, don't picture just like Buddhist monks, like, you know, the typical bald dude with the robes. No, these are like, you know, every walk of life, every type of person, men and women. Just so we have like this nebbish kind of nerdy dude come running over and like get on the computer and start, like, you know, to have the stereotypical Hollywood hacker. You
Yeah.
know, just starts like typing in the computer, just like, "I got this, Church." You know?
Yeah. And then yeah, have Church just be like, can you hack into it, microchip or whatever, one of those like dumbass names.
Microchip, I love it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the like the monks, these Hospitaller guys, like, kicking Bravo team's ass, and like I'm picturing like this little group of like tough guy monks, like Church, the ones that he kind of side-eyed earlier, like,
Mhm.
you guys ready, and have them all kind of give him the nod, and then when we see him again, it's like there's at least two or three of these guys. There's like the nerdy nebbish dude. There's like other ones who are like immediately going to like protect the refugees. But there's a couple of guys right in front who are like, oh, these dudes used to be brawlers. Like these are badass
Yep.
motherfuckers like Church, and like they all just made weapons out of like the stuff that they had. Like the one dude, like he took his shirt off and just twisted it into like a rope, and now he's got like a big thick garrote, or he can like hit somebody with it. The one
He's
dude
like whipping people in the throat with
yeah,
it.
the one dude like took his belt off and wrapped it around his hand with the buckle through his fingers, so now he's got like a fucking brass knuckle like mitt on.
Nice.
Just like I'm like it's like in split seconds between Church like looking at them and then getting roughed up a little bit. Like Church takes down one or two of the guards and then turns around to like open up like the plasma wall, and then these other monk dudes run out, and it's like, oh shit, they just turned their like prison outfits into like battle gear.
Yes. And there would be such a fun fight sequence too, just like these dudes in like fucking that like almost like white plasticky, stormtrooper armor with like straps and gear and guns and all this shit, big fucking boots and backpacks, and there's just like a bunch of dudes in prison gear beating the shit out of them.
Yeah. It'd be like, Jason Bourne beating someone with a magazine. It's like that's the kind of thing
Exactly.
I'm thinking of. And yeah, exactly. Like the one guard gets away, sets off like the intruder alarm. Maybe we cut away for a second and we see where Snake is, and we see
Yeah.
and we see that he's like jumped up like in the ceiling or something, and he's running, like the stereotypical like going through like the air duct kind of a thing. But
Hmm.
and he's crawling along, and he's looking down through the vents, and he's hearing the alarm go off, and he's seeing like people like run back and forth, and maybe he sees, maybe not the actual Cobra yet, but maybe he either sees it on a screen, or he hears some of the other guards over say something like Colonel Cobra is like on the way, he's in like B wing, he'll be here in a minute or whatever, and it's and then maybe you see Plissken doing that thing where like the John McClane thing, and he didn't Die Hard. He had like a Sharpie, and he was like making notes. But maybe somehow he's like or maybe he's just making mental notes. Like you hear him whisper out loud, like, okay, B wings that way, A wings over here, whatever. And it's kind of like okay, so he's figuring out how to hide in this place. However
Hmm.
we communicate that to the audience. Then we cut back to like the holding cells, and this is where we see Microchip, and he's just like, you hear the voice of like the alarm going off, like like prisoner escape, prisoner escape, prisoner escape, and then you hear the voice go offline, like prisoner escape, and then like the door opens up, and Microchip, he just leans back and like cracks his knuckles, like I still got it,
Right. Okay, I love all this, but what we should do is when we cut to Snake and he's like, kind of crawling through the duct, we hear the alarm, the prisoner's get. He's probably thinking that's about him, so he has no idea that he has backup
Oh,
coming.
nice. Okay, yeah.
So so now he's trying to hide. But yeah, I'm going back to Microchip, like doing the crack knuckle thing. It's like still got it. Have the group getting together, like ready to go on the run and like look to help Snake. So instead of having the door just like open, have Microchip like hacking away at the system, and have him be like trying to open the door. Like we could see him like typing in, like trying to open the door, and having the ship's computer be like access denied, access denied, and it'd be like, damn it, one of these has got to work. And he's like going through something, and it's like access denied, and it like shuts down, but they're still trapped. Like the door is still shut. And have Microchip be like, he's like, wait, I think I got it. He's like, computer, open the door to the med bay. And be like, hi, I'm the ship's computer. And it's just voiced by Gilbert Godfrey.
Yes, yes.
And it's like, open the bedroom door. Processing. You see the door open.
Okay. And like, I'm picturing Church looking over at Microchip with just like what the fuck like look on his face, and
Right.
Microchip should be sitting there and he's just like giggling to himself because he fucking did that shit on purpose.
He like strained the voice module or something.
Yes,
Oh my
that'd be awesome. Like it's like it wasn't a mistake. Like he brought it back online, but like I think that's something that you don't really see enough in like action movies, especially when like there's like life and death situations. Like there's guys who are like they sort of deal with stress by just like cracking jokes or like being the funny guy. So
Right.
it's like, what if this dude was just literally, he was just like, wait, hang on a second, guys, wait, hang on a second, listen to this.
This will be hilarious. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that.
Oh man. Okay,
Holy
so
shit.
they get out through the door, and I'm trying to like get back to it. I'm like laughing. Um,
I know.
so
Oh man.
do we want to have them try to run down the guard that escaped, or is it just a question of like, okay, let's just get out of here ourselves?
Yeah, I think yeah, well maybe because they're not really sure what the rest of the ship looks like. So
Mhm.
they're just kind of like run. I don't know what they're gonna be looking for. Maybe they're looking for weapons, they're
Yeah.
looking for a way out, they're looking to get back to the Exodus. Um so they're going to be running, but I feel like they're going to run into guards themselves and have like
Mhm.
there's going to be like two battles happening. So we'll have like church and the monks. Maybe they take the guns and like stun batons and shit off. Like
Mhm.
maybe the guns are like stun guns. Like they don't have
Yeah.
like like bullets on the ship. Or well, no, because we already had one kill Dallas. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
they got fucking guns. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, they have like blasters and stun batons. So they take the stuff off the knocked out guards, take some of the riot gear, and so now it's like this hodgepodge group of like some armed, some unarmed,
Mhm.
running around the ship, and they're going to be battling with other guards and stuff as the president sends people after them.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but okay,
What if we did? Yeah. What if we did something like let's kind of get them off the table a little bit because I think we really should go back and focus on Plissken and Cobra and
yes,
like we need them to meet finally, right? So let's do this. Where they get out of the room and they kind of all Church and the other monks and some of the other refugees they're kind of pouring out of the room and in the hallway that they get out to maybe there's a couple of guards again. We have a fight. We have some cool action sequences. We got to have Church like turn to Microchip and be like we got to find a way to get the rest of the people, the rest of the refugees, whatever Church refers to them as. Like we gotta get the rest of these people to safety. Like we gotta find some place to take them. Can we get back to the ship? And then have Microchip
Mhm.
just he's like talking to the computer, and again I can't do the Gilbert Gottfried voice, but you hear the computer going like you want to go where or whatever, and Microchip's just like shush like we need to like how do we get back to the ship? And then of course Gilbert Gottfried's gonna tell him like you can't go that way. It's under heavy guard, like, or all the ships are, in like, quarantine lockdown or whatever. And he's like, okay, we got to find some place where we can house all of these people, and get everybody to safety. And the point is that they're going to find some place like deep in the bowels of the ship to like go and hide for a while until they can figure out what to do. So Microchip's going to figure that out, like with the AI, the Gilbert AI Gottfried, and while Church and the others are kicking some ass, and then just have them kind
Mhm.
of like run off in some direction, leaving a bunch of like decapitated, no, not decapitated, like incapacitated guards behind, and then we're going to cut back to Snake now, or we cut back to Cobra probably. Either way, we got to get back to our Snakes in Space, so we can like finally have
Right.
them like meet face to face and get into like finally get into the meat and potatoes of what this relationship with them is like.
Right. Okay. So, to your point, like when you're talking about microchip talking to the computer, I think he should take one of the guards like wrist communicators,
Okay, yeah.
and be communicating with the ship through that way. This way they can keep on the move and have him be like, computer, the corridor B is blocked with guards. Is there another way around? Be like processing. Oh, sure, over this way. Just send him down another path. Oh God, that voice kills my throat. But so have them, yeah. So to your point, they're off looking for for basically safety, trying to get the people that aren't fighters to somewhere that they can hide, while the monks and church are kind of like guarding them. Um, so yeah, so we cut back to Snake. Like maybe he's down in like the engine room of the ship, and knowing Snake, he's gonna be like, oh, what can I fuck with here to cause a distraction to get the fuck out of Dodge, you know? So maybe he's like down in the engine room, and we can have Cobra, meet up here. And what I'm picturing is almost like the prison scene in Tango and Cash, where they're down in like the boiler room, and
Hmm.
there's all the steam and the fucking chains hanging from the ceiling.
Yes, nice.
So picture a cross between that and the freaking ship from Alien,
Hmm.
where when we kill off God, well, I'm forgetting everyone's names, but Yaphet Kotto and
Hmm.
they die down in like that area where there's just inexplicable wet chains
Yeah.
hanging from the ceiling for some reason.
Yes, exactly. Like, there's always way too much steam in spaceships and sci-fi movies. Like, why is everything so
Right?
steamy and wet and humid?
It's like metal floor grates, everything's drippy, it's just,
Yeah,
but that's kind of the vibe I'm picturing.
perfect.
So we could have Snake down there and have Cobra be like, give it up, Snake. I know you're down here, like that type of thing, and have Snake just be like, fuck, he's after me. So I don't know how we want to have the banter, but what I'm picturing is like Cobra sees Snake, comes down there, weapon trained on him, basically telling him to come with him, like he doesn't want to kill him, that type of stuff, and have Snake in some, in typical Snake fashion, be like, like I ain't gonna come quietly, like that type of his one-liners that he has all throughout the movies, and we need to have them fight. Now I'm picturing this fight very much like the fight from They Live, where it's just
Okay,
two
yes.
guys
Yeah.
beating the holy hell out of each other, nut shots, throat punches, just like slamming each other around, just
Yeah,
beating the fuck out of each other.
for way too long. Way too long.
Right, like uncomfortably long.
Yeah, it's like every time you think the fight's over, like they get up to dust each other off and then sucker punch and it's like right back into it, you know?
And I think what we should do is like while like have both of them like maybe like have Cobra like tackle Snake to the floor and Snake like kick him off him so he like flips over him. So now picture like they're both laying on their backs, head to head, like battered, bruised, looking up at the ceiling, like panting, like and then cut away and show like Church and the other monks like beating the fuck out of some of these guards as the refugees are like running down one of the corridors, and have the president like watching, like pan out to the president watching all this on monitors, and have him be like, slamming down one of the buttons, be like, damn it, I need guards to sector 7G. I know it's a Simpsons reference, but
Yes.
I need guards to sector 7G, and then have like the ship be like, I'm sorry, buddy, I can't help you with that. And be like, what the hell?
Sorry. Every time you do that, I'm gonna cackle.
And then we cut back to Snake and Cobra, and they're still beating the shit
Yeah.
out of each other.
Like they're just still going, yeah. And then we got to cut back to like Microchip and Church. Like they found some like big like silo bay or something in the bowels of the ship that has like food stores, and they're like they're shooing everybody in, like everyone come quick, come quick, come quick, like, while the guards are outside, or the other monks are kind of guarding outside, and then they all go in and like shut the door, and then we cut back to Snake and Cobra again, and they're still just fucking going at it.
Oh my god, like the longest fight sequence ever.
Yes. Yes, that's what we need to go for. It was just like an Escape from Earth when we had that big, gigantic, like Mad Max style fight going on, where we had like all those refugees and hospitalers and like President King Caesar's men. And it was just like we had described how we wanted to have like the biggest fight scene ever filmed in like Hollywood history, with like thousands of people coordinating this
Yes.
like gigantic fight like across the horizon, like. It would be the same thing here, where it's like somebody find out what the longest fight scene in movie history is between two people, and like we're gonna beat that by 10 seconds.
Longest one-on-one fight ever.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
So
So now here's the problem that I'm stuck on, is how is Snake gonna convince Cobra, that the president is, you know, is doing these horrible things.
yeah,
So
that's definitely
okay.
kind of an issue, right? Because especially after they have this big fight, it would be different if sorry, hang on. I think if they were able to like have a whole conversation while they were having this fight, like maybe Snake could be like making his point, like making his case. I don't know how realistic it would be for them to like be bantering like superheroes in a comic book while they're beating the shit out of each other. Um, but yeah,
I mean, to be fair, this is kind of like a superhero thing, so
yeah.
it makes sense.
Well, and I picture like Snake saying something to Cobra, while they're fighting. And I'm not going to do all the like the dialogue and the voices, but I'm just trying to like get the gist of it out here, right? Which is like, Snake's going to say to him like, "I can't believe you're working for that guy," like whatever number of years ago, like that guy like showed his true colors. He's an evil bastard. Whatever. He's trying to tell Cobra like, I know this guy personally. The forever president is a douchebag, and you're working for the wrong side. And then just have Cobra be
Mhm.
like, well, he's the elected president of the United States, and blah blah blah. And it's like whatever. You could tell that, if I don't think Cobra really cares so much about like being a rule follower. It's not a Boy Scout, but it's like his job, and like he's the
Right.
president, and like he welcomed you onto the space station. He like gave you food, tried to help you out, and Snake's like, no, he didn't. They were like doing experiments on us and like locking us up, and Cobra's like, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. And so this can
Mhm.
all be happening while they're fighting, but yeah, to your point, what I don't know how to solve yet is how does Snake prove to Cobra that what he's saying is right? Do we do we need to have him somehow like maybe Cobra captures Snake and takes him to the president. The president says something, and then Cobra's like, "Well, what the fuck? Like, I thought you were the good guy," and he hears it directly from the horse's mouth. Or maybe again, maybe they hear something like over like a video comm, or Cobra's got a radio that the president yells an order into, like, "Find that Snake motherfucker and bring me his head," or what, like, what I mean? Like, there's a couple of different possibilities here for the president to
Mhm.
out himself. I don't know how Snake can just convince Cobra. I feel like Cobra is gonna have to see the president like show his true colors.
Right. Okay. So during the fight sequence, I like the idea of having the banter back and forth. So have Cobra basically trying to tell him like what are you doing? Like we were helping you, like we're trying to restart mankind. That whole thing. Like that they have a plan to re-terraform Earth. To go back and help everybody. And have Snake, basically point out that they were only going to help themselves because they are the ones that created the Infinity Virus. He's the one that created the Sword of Damocles project. Like, just goes on like, they always intended to wipe us all out and only start over with the people that he chose to be the new rule, like the new people of Earth.
Hmm.
And have Cobra like, no, that's not true. That
Yep.
can't be true. That have that back and forth. Um, and then let's have Cobra win. Like Cobra, gets Snake. Like
Hmm.
he beats him. Maybe he gets him in cuffs, and he's like, you're coming with me, Snake. You're gonna see once and for all. The president's trying to help everybody, and have him like walking him down the hall. And as let's have them, like walking down the hall. He's has him as a prisoner, and a bunch of other guards like come running around and all train their guns
Hmm.
on Snake, and have Cobra like, whoa, 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 guys, he's a prisoner. Like I have it under control. And be like, there's orders from the president to kill Snake on sight. And be like, what are you talking about? I didn't get that order. And like basically he has no clue. There's a whole other contingency. This is why the president
Hmm.
had those when he was like, they're the prisoners, and then told people like Cobretti, oh, they're refugees, because he knew which ones were completely loyal to him and which ones were just useful idiots. And
Yep.
Cobra was a useful idiot, where he wasn't one of the Nazis, he was the brown coat, like that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Hmm.
He was the one that was the useful idiot. So maybe right here, they go to take Cobra into custody too, and maybe have Cobra warn the guy, be like, you better make sure those cuffs are on nice and tight, chief. Just like,
Right.
and as he goes to like tighten the cuff, we have Cobra fucking elbow the dude in the jaw, like unshackle Snake. Like maybe he's, they're like little plasma cuffs or something. So like he hits a button and Snake's cuffs come undone, and then he
Hmm.
starts beating the shit. And now we have Snake and Cobra beating the fuck out of the guards.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. Like, it's a pretty quick turnaround for Cobra and Snake to just go from like fighting to teaming up. But again, we've mentioned like, comic book superheroes, and it's the same thing. Like, first they
Hmm.
have to fight, and then they have to team up, and usually it happens pretty quick. It's usually like, during the fight, they're like, "Wait, why are you punching me? Wait, why are you punching me?" And and then
I
they talk it out.
all I have to say is one word: Martha.
Yes, yes,
Why did you say that name? Sorry,
exactly.
that's like,
Yeah, no, that's perfect. No, exactly, right?
if if they can do it in Dawn of Justice, we can do it here.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And so, okay, so I feel like we spent a long time like getting our two characters together. We built a lot of stuff up. We did that whole first act, and I kind of feel like this second act is going to be all of these action sequences that we just said, right?
Oh yeah.
My point being that like now that we have these two teamed up, like okay, so now Snake's going to want to go off and get the president. So
Yeah.
again, I'm not sure what exactly Cobra's motivation is here, but I think it's either going to be Snake is like, I'm gonna go get the president. You can come with if you want to or not. And Cobra's gonna be like, yeah, like no, I'm gonna come with you. Like I want to see this for myself, right?
Hmm.
Or Cobra has already flipped that switch to be like, yeah, fuck that guy. Like there's a little
Well,
bit of a subtle difference between those two. I kind of like the first one, where Cobra's like, I'm on your side, I'm gonna come with you, but I want to find the president, so Snake wants to kill him, but Cobra wants him to like tell him the truth, like what's really going on.
yeah, Cobra wants answers,
Yeah.
and I think the way to do that is we have like I said, we have them beat the shit out of the guards. Maybe Snake goes to grab one of the guards' guns, and Cobra could put a gun to Snake's head and be like, "Drop it, Snake," and have him be like,
Hmm.
"The fuck, man! Like you just saw with your own eyes, they're out to get us," and then be like, "I still don't trust it yet, but I want answers." He's like, "You're coming with me,"
Yeah.
and have him basically be like, I'm still holding on to hope that maybe those guys were just like a panicked group of idiots
Hmm.
that, heard the alarms, got nervous, thought their lives were in danger, didn't want anything bad to happen, so they were out to kill Snake.
Yep.
But he's gonna take Snake to the president to get answers so we can have our final battle with all three of them.
Yep.
But meanwhile, so we have Cobra and Snake like walking down the hall, like, Cobra's got a gun trained on Snake. Snake, he's unshackled now, but he's complying, knowing like, fuck, I got a gun to me and I'm unarmed.
Hmm.
So they're heading away. Now we're gonna cut back to Church and the gang, like trying to find their way. I like the idea of them trying to get back to the Exodus and it just
Hmm.
being guarded. So like let's have like them taking the paths of least resistance down, like following the ship's computer's guidelines, and then they're gonna get down to like picture in Star Wars when they first get down to the hangar and there's like stormtroopers walking around. So
Hmm.
there's going to be guards. They can't quite get there. It's a big open area. There's nowhere for them to hide. They're going to have to fight, So have them get down there and have like Church and the monks are all like, telling everyone to get down. And they're like kind of crouching down around the corner, like looking out into the hangar. And we see the different ports that go like all around. Like I'm picturing
Hmm.
like this big interior circular, like a hangar bay where there's the front ends of the ship like docked into it.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
like all around the perimeter. So there's guards everywhere. It's a big open space. Like literally it would be easier to take like a go-kart or a golf cart from like one end to the other because it's just gonna be you're gonna be walking for so long. It's like
Right.
it's just massive. Um, so have like Church be like, what do we do now? And Microchip whisper into the little communicator, be like, computer, is there any way we can get to the ship unseen? Be like, no, it's pretty open in there. Just like and have him be like, computer, disable lights. Like they're gonna travel under darkness, be like, processing, nighty night, and he turns off the lights. And have the guards like freak out. So now they got all their like helmet lights on. So what I'm picturing is like a very dark, like blue lit room with like guards walking around with big fucking like blaster rifles, and they got like on the sides of their helmet like the two spotlights. So it's like gonna be these guys like running in the darkness, like trying to like be not spotted by these guys with the spotlights, being like, what the fuck happened to the lights? Like, so the guards are all on edge. The monks have to move stealthily through the hangar bay, have like them like quietly one by one taking down the guards. You see like gunfire go off. The guys are getting nervous running around. But the monks, again, they're adept warriors. They're like sneaking around the hangar, just taking out guards one by one. So we see them like
Nice.
they're having this fight, and then we cut back over to Snake and Cobra, like outside the president's chamber, and have Cobra like literally, he's got Snake with him, he's got the gun to him. The guards are like, they stop him, and he's like, "Hey boys, I brought Snake for the president. That's what he wanted, right?"
Hmm.
And have him be like, they're like maybe they cock their weapons like ready to kill both of them, and
Hmm.
have the president come across the comm and be like, "Let him proceed." So like, they look back a little nervous, they step back, ship's door opens, they head into like the first section of the president's chamber. Remember, he's got that big plasma shield in front of him.
Yeah. Hmm.
So now this is where Cobra is going to confront the president and want answers. The door is going to come down behind him, and and like have Cobra say, yeah, Snake's telling me this really crazy story, right? That you're behind the Infinity Virus, you're behind the sort of Damocles project, like that you wanted all this. Tell him it ain't true, sir.
Hmm.
And have the president just kind of lean back in his desk and be like, it is true. And have Cobra just look at him in shock and just be like, you've served your purpose, Cobretti. And have him pull a fucking gun and shoot Cobra and be, of course, going to hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
But have Cobra like, I'm shot, and fall down.
Yeah, I think oh sure. No, yeah, and sorry, just a little like input to that. Instead of the president just saying something like, "Yeah, you're right," I think he should say something kind of condescending to Cobra. He should be like, he's like, I was wondering how long it was going to take you to figure out the truth. Like, he's like,
Yes.
you were great as like, my muscle bound thug, but like, you've lasted your usefulness or something like that. Where it's like, basically going to tell him like, you big dumb idiot, you finally figured it out. you know?
Yeah, like, and he could literally call him like, "You've played your role as the useful idiot well," like
hmm
something like that. Just like basically, yeah, real condescending, real nasty. Like I like that. I like that angle for the president,
hmm
and then just fucking shoot him. And I'm sorry, but I have to insist that he does go, "Oh, I'm shot,"
Yeah,
like just because
obviously.
I think that's fucking hilarious.
Yes, absolutely.
And like have it where he goes out of frame. So like, because remember this, it's all the escape movies that they were a little tongue in cheek. They were very comical
hmm
at moments.
Yeah,
Like as much as they were a stereotype of action films, they were also almost lampooning action films a little bit too. Um, so
yeah,
like the way I'm picturing it is Snake standing there in front of the president's like plasma wall in front of his desk, and Cobra is standing there with him, with the gun trained on Snake. When the president shoots him, I'm just picturing Cobra like retching to the side, or like wrenching to the side, like grabbing at his shoulder where he got shot, falling out of frame. And then from below, like, and have Snake like look down, like as he falls out of frame, and from out of frame go, "Oh, I'm shot!" Like just
yes,
that's the
yeah.
and then have Snake just look back at the president.
Okay.
Oh my god.
So yeah, so like obviously like again, I don't want to do all the dialogue, but Snake and the president and they're gonna have their little face off here. Their face off of words, right? Snake's gonna
Yeah.
accuse him of all the stuff that he did, and like I came all this way from Earth, like or should I like say I didn't know I came all this way from Earth just to kill you, but like our destiny has crossed paths again, or something like that. Some
I like I didn't know I came all this or came all the way from Earth just to kill you, but here we are. Like
yeah,
just something like that.
yeah,
Just like very matter of fact, like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to kill you."
yeah.
You know?
Exactly, in his very gravelly, whispery voice, like, "But here we are," you know. Yeah, and so like and yeah, maybe he just starts like striding up to that like plasma wall. The president's standing behind it, like obviously he's not saying this, but his body language is like, like, "Ooh, you can't get me. Like, what are you gonna do?" And it's like, and then of course there's other guards in the room, and I think it would be funny if right here, if we had, if we suddenly heard the Gilbert Godfrey AI voice come over a speaker, and again, I can't do the voice, but the Gilbert Godfrey is gonna say something like, "Snake, jump," and then Snake just looks around, and then as the guards go to grab, they go to like level their guns at Snake again. Snake just jumps up in the air, and then you see the computer like electrocute the whole platform that Snake was standing on and like fries the guards so that when Snake lands back down on the ground again, it's like he missed the electrical charge that like took out the guards, and like somehow Cobra was out of the way, but like I don't care about that. That's fine. Like hand wave that shit out of the way,
No,
but like
no, 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 no. Dude, no, seriously. Here, I love this. I love all of this right here. Maybe, oh fuck, I don't know, because Cobra and Snake don't really know the ship's computer is super fucked up yet, do they?
No, that's why it would be funny
Yeah.
because out of nowhere, it's like like Snake jump, and or maybe it's not Gilbert Godfrey. Maybe it's just Church's voice out of nowhere saying like Snake, trust me, jump, and then they take him out, and then maybe you hear the AI voice say, but like like oh we got good air that time, and then like they take down the plasma wall. That's kind of the point that I was getting at is like Church kind of comes to the rescue from afar to help them out because they have control of that AI.
Right. Okay. 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 So here's what we should do. We have the whole like back and forth with the president. The "Oh, I'm shot," that whole thing. So now we cut back to Church and the boys, and we have like maybe there's an alarm or something that goes overhead of like all available guards to the president's office, like
Oh,
something
okay.
like that. And have Church like look at Microchip and be like, "What the fuck's going on?" Or you're like, "What the hell's going on?" And something like that. And have Microchip be like, "Computer, show us what's happening at the president's office," and have me like, "Okay," and pop up a little like video on his wristwatch, and he sees Cobra and Snake in the office of the president. and have him be like, they got Snake. We got to help him. And then that's when we can be, like have Microchip be like, like, computer, what options do we have? And have like him showing him something, but we don't see what it is. Cut back to we go in through the monitor, like transition sequence, go in through the monitor, come back out into the president's office. We see the president stand up talking to Snake, and like maybe he like flips a little switch on his desk, and we as the audience see that there's like, it could totally be like a fucking Dr. No situation, be like electric floor, missiles, like have all these different options, and have him go to press the electric floor button. And that's when you have, Church come across or have the computer come like, hey, Snake, it's me, the computer. Trust me on this. Jump.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, and again, I think it would be funny if, like, I almost want to leave the plot hole for, like, the internet to bitch about later on TikTok when they're just like, he electrocuted the whole floor and took out all the guards, but like Cobra was laying right there on the floor. How did he not get electrocuted? Like.
Oh, I think we no, dude, we should show this. So like we have like we'll do the slow motion sequence. Like the guards come running through the door, guns trained on Snake. Snake jumps. The floor ignites with electricity, like, and all the guards are like, like they're all, and we see Cobretti on the floor going, like,
yes, okay.
And when the electricity stops and the guards all fall over smoking, Cobra stands up going, what the hell was that? Just like he's so badass.
Yeah.
And even though he got electrocuted, he was like, fuck that.
Yeah, he got shot and electrocuted, and it was just like brushing it off. But like, I love that too, because the same thing happened in Tango and Cash, where they fucking got shot and electrocuted like multiple times, and they always just like walked it off like, man, that sucked. Like, let's go right back to the action.
Exactly. It's perfect.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and then you see the president, and he's still behind that plasma wall, right? And he's just like, you see him look around, get a little bit worried, but he's, again, he's still behind the plasma wall. He's fine, right? And then the next thing you know, we gotta have Gilbert Godfrey say another like silly line, or maybe it's Church who comes over the speaker this time to say something like, we got your back, Snake, or whatever it is. So then, yeah, when that plasma wall comes down, that obviously now the audience knows what's happening, but now both Snake and Cobra will understand, oh, this is Church and our buddies. They got away safe. They're fine, and not only are they fine, but they're helping us out. So we don't have to worry about them. Now we can like focus on this motherfucker right in front of us.
Right. So okay. So yeah. So when Cobra gets, oh, what the hell? Like, he's just brushing it off. Have Snake pick up one of the guards' guns. So now he is armed. Cobra, is obviously sees the president is bad news now. So he's like, fuck this guy. But they got the plasma wall, and have Cobra like, looking at the president, just looking daggers at him. Like maybe he looks over to Snake, Snake nods at him. They both look back at the president, and have the president smiling, still sitting behind his desk, or maybe standing behind his desk, and being like, you basically like, Cobra, as well as I do that those bolters aren't going to shoot through the plasma, and have Cobra just be like, computer, take down the plasma wall, and have the president kind of scoff like, who's he? He's not going to be able to get the presidential wall down. And have the computer just be like, okie dokie, artichoke, and then just
see, I knew you had another one in you.
And have the plasma wall go up, and both of them turn to shoot, and have the president just drop down behind the desk, like before he hits him, like, chunks of the fucking desk splinter, go flying. President drops down behind the desk. He hits a button, and we see a hatch in the floor open, and he drops into it. And have Cobra be like, where the hell he go? And then the desk like just fucking splits. The floor opens, and we see this fucking mech suit come up out of the floor with the president, and it's fucking Mecha President, like Mecha Hitler from Wolfenstein 3D.
Yes.
He's got like this fucking armored power suit with like Gatling guns around the wrists. Yeah. And it's just like got a big fucking bald eagle on the chest. Like it's got an American flag cape.
Yes. Okay, hang on. Before we get to the mech battle, because this is gonna be great. Let's just back up just for a second. Yeah, so like I almost said Tango and Cash, but yes, Snake and Cobra,
Right?
like yeah, exactly. When the plasma wall comes down, like they train their guns on the desk. They start blasting, and the president goes down behind the desk. To your point, like, and they're just blowing the shit out of the desk. They should be shooting that desk like Schwarzenegger and the boys were blowing away the trees in Predator. Just
Yes.
way too long. And like it's obvious that the desk it was like steel enforced, so they're just like shooting like the wood veneer off, and then they're like punching holes in the steel. Like they're just blowing the shit out of this desk. And then like when they finally run out of ammo, they both like they reload new clip, and then they both like creep over or kind of do that slow careful walk around the side of the desk, one on either side, and then like real quick they haha they jump behind the desk, they train their guns like the president's going to be back there hiding out, and of course the president's gone, and then we haven't really had them get to argue that much the way that Tango and Cash did. So this would be the perfect place for for Cobra to be like, oh, I thought you got him, oh, I thought you shot him, well, you were supposed to shoot him, no, I thought you were supposed to shoot him. you know?
I was giving you cover. You're the one that wanted to kill him. You're the criminal,
Exactly.
not me.
Exactly. You were spending all your ammo shooting up the desk when you should have been shooting the president. Like
I thought you was a badass. You can't shoot for shit.
yeah, exactly, right. And then they start feeling the ground rumble, and it's like again, like in a really cheesy old movie where it's like the ground is rumbling, like there's a tremor, and like there's like pictures falling off the wall and shit's falling over, and then they both like they start like stumbling backwards as the middle of the floor starts to like split open, and and kind of like fold away. And yeah, to your point, that this like light shines up out of the floor, and out comes Mecha Prez.
And of course he's like, it's gonna be like when frickin' Kane in RoboCop 2
Yes.
comes up, like that reveal where it's like the slow spin around, like da, 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 like we see, and of course it's gonna growl like Ed 209, like it'll be like, and like fucking fingers like clamping, and we see the Gatling guns like spin around his wrist, like kind of, and it's like as he's spinning around, like the American flag cape is billowing, and who knows how the wind got there.
Exactly.
Like he should have like rocket launchers on his shoulders, like little 6 rockets on each shoulder, just like completely way too many weapons for one man to have. Oh my god.
Oh, okay. So like I'm just picturing a total video game here, right? I'm picturing where
Mhm.
where Microchip is like the guy playing the video game, right? So like you see the president in this big mech suit, like there's like a warning where like his like shoulder cannon activates or something, and then you see Cobra and Snake like, oh shit, and they go to like dive for cover, and right as like the cannon or whatever goes off, like a little piece of the plasma wall comes down, like not a whole plasma wall, because that was like out in the antechamber, but like it's almost like there's like a little part, like a little panel of it shoots down, and it like blocks the rocket, and then Cobra and Snake look at each other like, what the hell? And then we cut back to like Microchips at his screen, and he's like and he's like playing the game on the screen where the president shoots a bullet, and he has another little piece of the wall come down to like block the bullet, and then he's like talking into the microphone like 2 o'clock boys, like get behind the rubble and shoot him in the vent on the rear side, or whatever. And it's like I'm just picturing Microchip who's like playing like whack-a-mole trying to block the ammo, so because the dude's got like fucking rockets and missiles and shit, and we got
Right.
2 regular humans running around in a room full of like debris. But I just think it would be funny.
Well, here's I love that. I fucking love that. So yeah, we're gonna cut to Microchip in the group. Let's have them be on the Exodus. Like they got
Oh
there.
yeah,
Like
nice.
so they're like have like we just pan out. We see the fucking hangar bay. Like all of these dudes knocked out. Maybe like there's like red emergency lights are on. And then you pan into the Exodus, and Microchip is on the ship like with the rest of the refugees, and he's like typing and talking to the computer. And so we see, just like you said, like the president goes to shoot the missiles, the panel comes down, blocks it. He raises up his Gatling gun arm and just starts spraying bullets. And as he sprays them across the room, the panels are like, tink, 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 like dropping
Hmm.
down one at a time, blocking it as he swipes. And, maybe have him come across the loudspeaker and be like, "You got to run, boys. I can't keep this up forever." And have them like tear ass out of the office,
There you go.
and have the president, very much like Kane in the elevator shaft in RoboCop, just be like, "Rah!" and just start running after him, break through the fucking wall of the presidential office and like slam into the wall in the hallway. Like as they're running, like, oh shit, and he's just like tearing ass down the hall after them as they're making their way to the hangar. So
Nice.
he's like, spraying bullets, but he's a fucking idiot. Like he's got all of this tech and no means to control it because he's a little fucking whiny bitch.
Yeah.
So he's like that rich kid that gets the Nintendo but doesn't know how to play it.
Yeah.
It's-
Well,
he just wants.
let's keep in mind too the president's like really old, and it's like,
Well, yeah, and
he's
he
just
always
like
had cronies doing it for him.
yeah, maybe he's just like a boomer with technology. Like you're like, how do you work this crazy thing?
Yeah, we could even do that, dude. We could pan inside because we're gonna see his face like in a little window on the big fucking giant mech suit. But inside, he's like a little kid, like with a control panel, just be like, "How do I work this damn thing? Get forward, go forward!" And he's like yelling at it as it's like stumbling down the hall, like slamming its fists through the wall. And I almost called him Tango and Cash as well. Snake and Cobra running down the hall. We got to have a scene where he's like, "Fuck it, rockets!" and he hits both fists down on the control panel, and we see from like right in front of I'm picturing this as a cinematic shot, right in front of the mech suit, we see all the remaining rockets on both shoulders go fucking flying off, and have I almost said church, freaking Cobra and Snake like jump out of the hallway into the hangar as the rockets like explode all around the door, and they're like, "Nah!" we got to have the Stallone face, the
Mhm.
face as he's jumping through the air, so this just big fireball like throws them out into the hangar, rocking the entire space station because he just fucking shot off like several missiles. So now they're trying to get to the Exodus. The fucking president is chasing after them like a lunatic, just fucking firing off randomly, just blowing everything up. Have Snake or have Church and Microchip like trying to get Snake and Cobra to get to the fucking Exodus. So they're running towards the ship. The president's like, "You're not gonna get away from me, you little snakes in the grass," like that type of thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And he's just fucking shooting, but he's blowing holes in the hangar wall.
Hmm.
So like as he's shooting, like we're seeing these big fucking holes open, and just again the stereotypical sci-fi thing, the vacuum of space like
Yep.
pulling, and we see like the crates flying. Snake and Cobra are running. They're sliding along the thing, getting pulled toward the open space. They're grabbing onto the ship. We see the Exodus like door ramp like kind of come down, and Church and the others like, "Come on, boys, get in here!"
Yep.
Like maybe they made like a human chain, like Church is at the end of it,
Yep.
holding on to all the other monks, and like they're sliding toward it. Grabs Snake, Snake grabs Cobra, and they all start pulling aboard. And the president's like, "You're not going to escape me." And again, because he's a boomer with technology,
Hmm.
he's just hitting all the buttons. So his freaking mech suit is like flying around, shooting Gatling guns, shooting rockets. They get in the Exodus. They start to pull out as the president like blows a hole in the wall and gets like he starts getting sucked toward the opening, and
Hmm.
he's just like using his like jet boots, like trying to like, "No, no, not me."
Yeah.
And like we see the Exodus like pulling out of the docking station and start to fly. And then I think this is great for the quote unquote fall of the bad guy. We're focused on the Exodus as it's pulling out, and we just see the little mech suit in the distance, like flying out into space,
Yes. Yes.
like Darth Vader in the fucking TIE Fighter in part one, just like spinning off into space.
Yes. That's amazing. Yeah, man, I love it. This is
Oh my
so,
god.
okay. So now, okay, so I wasn't expecting everybody to kind of like get back on the ship. I think that's interesting. I think I had thought in my when we were planning this ahead of time. Not that I was thinking that much ahead because I try to avoid that. But I guess I was thinking
Yep.
like, yeah, they would just like live on the spaceship now because Earth is all fucked up. But to your point. what you said earlier is like the Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, the Infinity
Right?
the Infinity Virus like runs its course eventually, right?
Hmm.
And they've been gone for a little while on this little space adventure. Who knows what happened down on Earth where the Infinity Virus was like set loose in, California, or wherever they were when President King Caesar's place. Um, and I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world, but anyway, I'm just kind of like talking, just between us. Like, I'm not sure how to exactly wrap up the movie because we got to have some kind of like,
Oh, I got it.
little denouement. But I think it would be interesting now where it's like, do they stay on the ship or can they go back to Earth now? Like, I'm not sure.
I got it. I totally got it. So once we see we see the president fly by, go off into the distance. We zoom into the ship, and we see like Cobretti standing amongst the Hospitallers, and maybe have Church like clap him on the back and be like, you're gonna like being one of us, friend. Like I like the cut of your jib. Like
Yeah.
kind of look at him like welcoming him into the fold. And have Cobra kind of looking around, he's like, so where we gonna go? And have Microchip be like, oh, the ship's computer can answer that. And he'll be like, like maybe he downloaded the AI to the Exodus,
Yes. Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, computer. It's like, what was the president planning? Be like, oh yeah, he's got these here Genesis spheres. They're gonna terraform the planet. And have it like open up, and we see like there's these like spheres of like swirling energy, and basically have him explain like basically explain the big MacGuffin thing to Snake and Cobra. Have him be like, the president originally planned to re-terraform the planet after destroying it. He goes, we now have the means to help everybody left on Earth.
Nice.
We can
Nice.
start over. And have like Cobra look at Snake and be like, it's gonna be a lot of hard work. You up for it, pal? Have Snake be like, call me Snake.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Fade to black.
And only thing I want to do is at the very end, like after the credits roll, just like hear kind of like a respirator breathing, and just pan into like the president trapped inside of his little fucking mech suit as like crystals are forming on the outside glass, and I'm just be like, but I'm the president. I'm the president, and I would just cut to black.
Yes. Yes. Woo! All right, man, we did it. We got there. That's awesome. Yeah.
That went in directions I did not expect it to, but I had fun with that one.
Yeah, me too. I was starting to get a little bit lost, to be honest with you. I was starting to feel like, oh man, like I feel like there's a good setup here, and we spent a lot of time setting it up. But then as soon as it was time for like Snake and Cobra to like meet up, I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
in the heat of it, it was like, okay, like well, let's just figure it out. Like we got to do this, then we got to do this, and it very quickly turned around and I realized, oh, like there's definitely like some really cool stuff here. And honestly, like the secret I think was keeping Church involved and like introducing microchip in the fucking ship's computer.
Gilbert Godfrey. That was just funny and again, like to your point, like when you suggested the idea of like a hacker, I think that was a linchpin moment for me, because it was like, okay, now I have a way to like play with these other characters that I wasn't sure what to do with.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think like with Snake and Cobra, like this is the hardest part of any versus movie. Like look at Freddy versus Jason. We At the very start of Freddy versus Jason, it makes sense how Freddy finds Jason, because Jason had died, Freddy had already died before him, he was already in hell. It's like, cool, it makes sense. Now how do we get the two of them not only to fight, but like especially because they're both bad guys, like how do we get them to fight, but how do we get them to their respective locations? Because it's like, all right, we need the kids of Elm Street to be afraid of Jason, so let's have Jason, as we discussed on the Boogeyman's Closet, walk over 500 fucking miles to Elm Street. And then they have to drive back to Crystal Lake. Like there's always a lot of convoluted, like move this chess piece here, move this chess piece here. And when you have two different franchises, you have to like give each character their time to shine, and you have to have like, why do they fight now, why do they team up, you have to have those moments. And in the case of Freddy versus Jason, it's the opposite. Why do they team up? Then why do they fight? But it's like that's always hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, every comic book crossover. I mean, remember Avengers versus JLA? It's always convoluted
Yeah.
every single time.
That one was
So that's
super
the hardest
complicated.
part. Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the hardest part of any of these team ups. I mean, hell, we even had problems with that with some of our Arnieverse, where we're like, how do we get these two properties smashed together? Like the Terminator one was the easiest one, Terminator and Commando.
Mhm.
But I think everyone after that, like, it definitely took some finagling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some logic leaps.
Yeah, well, especially with like, fucking Last Action Hero and Conan the Barbarian, like, how do you mash those movies together? And to me, like, that's the fun of it. And that was the fun of this
Yeah.
story and why I wanted to do it, besides just the Tango and Cash joke and like the little Easter eggs that we dropped in the previous episodes, but like, to actually take the time to schedule a recording and like do this for real. And I was like, yeah, because I really want to like figure out like how do we mash these characters together. And then the problem is like, sometimes it's the opposite of what you just said. Sometimes it's easy to get them together, but then what do they do? Like, I don't know. It's like I don't know what to do with these
Right.
characters now. I think those are the types of like comic book superhero crossovers that I tend not to enjoy. Are the ones where it's easy to have them meet, but then what? It's like, a lot of times in comic book, crossovers like Marvel DC crossovers that they used to do back in the day, they wouldn't even try to explain that they like crossed a dimensional rift or something. It would just be that like, oh, Captain America runs into Batman one day because of course, like New York City is a real place and like, both universes. So and like they just kind of like, ignore the fact that at no other point do the Marvel and DC characters exist in the same universe, but they'll just meet,
Right.
and it's like, okay, cool, that was easy. But now, what do they do? Like, what is the story that justifies these two characters like teaming up, to fight some big bad that they both have an interest in? Like, I don't know. Like that's why like it's more interesting when the crossover does have some of these convoluted, complex scenarios where it's like, well, how do we get the characters together? Like that's the more interesting part because once they're together, you're like, okay, well, we've come this way far, we might as well do something, you know.
Right.
And that's kind of how I felt with this, like absolutely putting Snake and Cobra together was fun. I wanted to do it. I really like where we ended up. The Mecha President was a great idea, but but notice how quickly we went from them finally having their confrontation to teaming up to fight the president. Like if this was an actual
Yep.
movie, that would have been a really quick like 10 minutes, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, keep in mind also with this, we speed through like the banter and the fight sequences because that
Yeah.
that fight sequence, as we discussed, like it would have to be like an 8-minute long fight scene.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think all of Act 2 would just be fighting. Like there's not even a whole lot of story happening at all. Yeah. But man, yeah.
And but yeah, like I don't know, I love the visualization of the Mecha President because what I'm kind of picturing is like a cross between like I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Warhammer 40K stuff, but like one of the big Warhammer 40K mechs crossed over with like the way Kane and Ed 209 moved, like that weird stop motion kind of movement. But yeah, just this big, almost like a golden god type of thing. Like he's all red, white, and blue. He's got gold all over him. He's got the American flag cape. Like I just think that's hilarious, like a hilarious fit for our bad guy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love when as soon as you said he's like a boomer with technology, it made everything make perfect sense. Like, why is he so bad at this? And that's funny because he's his own fucking foil. He's literally his own worst enemy. He's been trying to like, keep everybody under his thumb, but when shit hit the fan, he couldn't do shit. He didn't know what to do. He had all the toys in the world and no means to use.
Yeah, yeah, and I wish we had figured that out like a few minutes earlier because I had that idea of like, well, shit, now we have this big mech with like rockets and lasers and Gatling guns and whatever the fuck on it. Like, how are these two guys in a room gonna get out of this? And that's why I thought, oh, it'd be really funny if Microchip was like playing a video game, like putting up plasma walls to like protect them like
Mhm.
shields, so they could have, because I'm thinking again, I'm thinking like Contra, like the video game
Oh
Contra,
yeah.
like you have these like silly like little moving platforms and stuff, and I just thought that was hilarious in the moment, but it very quickly went from like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Like it makes more sense for them to run away and then to figure out, okay, if they run away, then we don't have to immediately explain like how they're not just obliterated from the overpowering ammunition of the mech. And then again,
Right.
on top of that, it was like, well, yeah, the secret is just that he doesn't know how to use it. Like that's all you need.
That's it.
Yeah.
And And the funny thing was, like, I think that's a great visualization. Like, hopefully the audience is picturing it the way that you and I are picturing it. Because as soon as you said, having the plasma walls come down, I pictured that like I said, the thing with the president where he goes to fire the first rocket, and like the plasma wall drops and explodes the rocket and like shocks everybody in the room. So then have the president go to like fire again and it blocks it, and then we have microchip come over the loudspeaker and tell them to run. I can't keep this up all day, boys, like I said. But I like the visualization of the president spraying across the room with his Gatling gun arm,
Hmm.
just like shooting, and have the little like the visualization of the I'm picturing like a pinkish plasma shield, like a see-through pinkish shield, kind of like tink 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 tink, like just dropping
Hmm.
down,
Yep.
and just the bullets absorbing into it, and just like pissing the president off. I think that if this were, a real movie, like this would have been like a CGI extravaganza right here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also, when you had mentioned like the mech suit being all decked out with like the American flag and stuff, it's not a mech suit, but it made me think of the way that in the Marvel comics when Norman Osborn gets control of Iron Man's
Yes.
armor and he paints it red, white, and blue, and he poses with an American flag and he calls himself the Iron Patriot, and I'm like,
Yes.
this is like such a douchebag supervillain, like businessman boomer asshole who's posing in the American
Hmm.
flag, like really more like putting on an act that obviously than anything else. But yeah, that's the first thing I thought.
Exactly. Well, it's the difference between being true and being a player, like being someone who is all talk and no action.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that I think that unfortunately, like in reality, there's a lot of people out there like that who are all talk and no action, who wouldn't back up their words.
yeah,
So I think that that is a great fit for our villain
yeah,
because
yeah.
those are very big douchebags.
Yeah, I don't want to make any comments on like modern politics here in
No, no, no.
2025, but I'm catching what you're laying down. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure our listeners can piece that together.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but but
But
yeah, I got to be honest, dude. I had way more fun with this than I initially thought. I loved Escape from Earth, and I feel like this is just a real fun follow up. I hope the listeners like it as much as I did because I really had a blast.
yeah, absolutely, me too. And speaking of blast and action, we never really talked about Tango and Cash the movie that much. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
we had a really long like intro talking about the characters and the actors and doing the backstory on Escape from Earth and Cobra 2, Assignment Miami Beach, and I felt like it took us a really long time in the episode to get to like the meat of the story. So I was tempted to, well, let's stop and talk about Tango and Cash from 1989. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to skip it. And if we have time later, like we'll get back to it. And all I really want to say is that I watched it recently, just getting ready for the episode. And I saw it
Mhm,
once when it was like first on cable, HBO or whatever it premiered on. And I remember watching
mhm,
it at the time in I guess 89 or probably 1990 by then. And I remember thinking like, yeah, it's okay. Like whatever, no big, like
mhm.
nothing special. But when I watched it this time, man, I really had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, no, I had the exact same reaction. This is one of those movies that I vividly remember. As soon as it came out on video, my dad really wanted to see it. So I remember him renting it and being like, me, my brother, and my dad being all excited. And I remember my mom and sister they like action movies as well, but like they're not as big into them as me, my brother, my dad were. So they were there watching, but I feel like my sister was reading a magazine. Like I vaguely remember like a family watch where no one seemed that involved other than dad. And so it was one of those movies it would pop on once in a while because my dad record every time we had the two VCRs. So every time we rented something, we taped
Hmm.
it. So he'd pop it in once in a while and rewatch it. So I remember it being on a lot, but I don't really remember paying much attention. Like the two scenes that always lived in my head, I forgot a lot about the movie, but the scene where they're fighting in like the bowels of the jail, and then the scene where they fucking slide across the electrical wires to freedom. Like I remembered those two scenes, but nothing else about the film. So like when you were talking about this being like Tango and Cash, I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of is. And then when I rewatched it before we got together for this, I was like, fuck, this is a really good movie in comparison to what I remembered. Like,
Yeah,
it's way better than I thought it was, and it's very funny. Like, I think that's the thing that I didn't realize as a kid is how much humor is in that movie. It's a
yeah.
really funny movie.
Yeah, I agree. And you just said exactly what I was about to say, which is that I didn't remember how funny the movie was. I mostly remembered the whole prison sequence and a
Hmm.
little bit of the stuff with like Terry Hatcher, but like that was about it. Like the whole beginning of the movie, I was like, I was like, I swear I've never seen this before. Like there's none of this do I remember. Like introducing the two characters, I didn't remember the big fight at the end. But yeah, I from the get-go thought that it was hilarious. Like right from the way that Stallone was playing that sequence when he like he stops the tanker full of like cocaine and he's like so cocky
Yes.
about it, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like this is a comedy. It's not an action
Hmm.
movie. I mean, it is an action movie, but it's like it's a comedy where it's obvious that they are very purposefully using every action movie trope, and they're going over the top with it. And as soon as I realized that that's what I was watching, I was completely on board, and I was like, "Oh, like this was just marketed wrong. It's not an action movie with some quips in it like a Schwarzenegger. It's a comedy that's like playing in the action movie, realm, just like like Shaun of the Dead is a comedy that plays in the horror realm."
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think people sleep on it because I think it's like, with both Stallone and Kurt Russell, they had a ton of fucking movies in the 80s and early 90s. And, Stallone's going to be remembered, obviously, for stuff like Rocky, Rambo. Those are going to be like the big ones. A lot of people aren't remembering stuff like Oscar, Tango and Cash, but
yeah,
they're good movies. And then, of course, Kurt Russell, like everyone's going to remember him from stuff like Big Trouble in Little China. Not many people are going to be thinking of Overboard, but that's another
yeah,
Kurt Russell movie I fucking love.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like they were all over the place in the 80s and they both had comedic chops.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Overboard is actually one of my favorite Kurt Russell movies. We had it taped off of TV, so it's one of those
It,
random movies that I've seen a bunch of times.
same. I fucking love that. See, and that was one of the things my mom loved that movie. And I honestly, I think it's because she had a crush on Kurt Russell. Because she used to talk about, she was like, oh, he's so handsome. She loved that film. So I watched a ton of Overboard as a kid. And man, that movie's highly underrated.
Yeah,
Really funny movie.
absolutely. Yeah, and for me, you know, speaking of movies that like, has anyone ever seen like The Specialist since 1994? Like, there's a forgotten
Shit, I
Stallone
haven't.
movie, like that's what I'm talking about. Like, these guys, their careers have been up and down, and hell, even Kurt Russell. And I've mentioned this before on the show that I think people forget that Kurt Russell was such a big star in the 80s and a big action movie star. Like, he's still around and
Hmm.
he still acts. But I don't think that people realize the level of stardom that Kurt Russell had at that time.
Oh yeah. No, he was in a lot of stuff. And I mean he still is, but it's things have changed for him. Like he's not he I mean he is the leading man in some movies, but he's less of the leading man now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's more playing roles like the how he's like the whatchamacallit, the bounty hunter in the Hateful Eight,
yeah, mhm,
or like he has a lot of those types of roles now.
yeah, yeah. And I said the 80s, but I think maybe even more so the 90s, because in the 80s he was in like smaller movies. He's in Escape from New York. He's in The Thing. Of course, he's in Big Trouble in Little China. And now of course I'm looking at his Wikipedia page. But what I'm thinking is like by the time you get after Tango and Cash, he's into Backdraft, Tombstone, Stargate, like Soldier. Like these were all big movies at the time that they came out.
Yep.
You know,
Oh no, they were big, and like he was still doing comedies though. Because remember Captain
I
Ron?
fucking love Captain Ron.
Great movie.
Hell yeah.
And honestly, a movie that does not get talked about nearly enough, the Elvis film with Kurt Russell.
Yeah. Oh shit, what is that called? It's
It's just Elvis.
oh
It's Elvis from 1979,
oh that one. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and it was directed by Carpenter. Like, so it's a John Carpenter movie, and it's one of those movies that just doesn't get talked about a lot. But again, my mom really liked it, so it was one of those films that we watched on video a lot as a kid.
Yeah, see, and I had totally forgotten about it because I thought that you were referring to 3,000 Miles to Graceland, where he plays an Elvis impersonator with
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kevin Costner. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But I forgot he was even in that Elvis movie. You're right, or that the movie even existed. But there were a lot
Hmm.
of those, just like there's a lot of musician biopics that happen now, like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man, and this new one that about Springsteen that's coming out. But same thing back then,
Hmm.
because like when I was a kid, man, I used to always watch. First of all, fucking La Bamba is a top 2025
Oh,
movie for me, absolutely. And
fuck
then
yeah.
I can't remember the name of the movie, the one where Gary Busey plays Buddy Holly. Is it just called Buddy Holly? But that's a fucking great movie too. Yeah, it's just
Oh shit.
the Buddy Holly story, and I had that one taped when I was a kid too, and used to watch it a bunch.
I completely forgot about this movie. I'm
Yeah,
looking at it right now, dude. I forgot this even. Oh, I'm gonna have to revisit this.
yeah, it's really
Because
good.
again, I do remember watching it a lot as a kid. Like the because La Bamba, man,
Mm,
that I think most of my family liked that movie. That was just one of those like, oh, it's on TV. The family sat around and watched it.
yeah.
Like we all liked that movie.
I think I might have always had a connection to it. Not only is La Bamba a great movie, it's great music.
Hmm.
I loved La Bamba the song,
Me
as a
too.
kid too. I don't know if the movie came first or the song came first, but hell, I'm looking at a Richie Valens like commemorative like soda bottle on my desk right here because I've always been
Hmm.
a big Richie Valens fan ever since I was a little kid, and the day that the Big Bopper Richie Valens and Buddy Holly died in that plane
Yep.
crash was February 3rd, 1959,
Hmm.
and that's our birthday, the day the music died. Not in
Yep. And I
1959, obviously, but February 3rd.
I heard that all the time growing up, especially because my uncle, he made his life as a musician,
Hmm.
and so like he used to comment on that, like at my birthdays, he'd be like, "Oh, the day the music died, little Mike was born," that kind of thing,
Yep,
and
same.
it's just like I used to hear that all the time, and like so yeah, again had that same connection to the movie La Bamba, um, and it actually made me really like Lou Diamond Phillips as a kid,
Yeah,
like
again, same here. When I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of Christian Slater movies. I mentioned that we had a whole episode, 100% more
yeah,
Christian Slater. But yeah, guys like him and Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips, like all the Young Guns guys, like those were like
yep,
the dudes where if they were in a movie, I was gonna watch that movie no matter what.
same,
They were like
100% same.
my Brat Pack. Like I was a little bit too young for like the actual Brat Pack to like understand who all of those people were when you're 5, 6, 7 years old. But by the early 90s, when Christian Slater was in fucking Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, by then those dudes were like the guys where again if there was a movie I was watching it.
Same,
Yeah.
100%.
Anyway, we got way off
Oh man.
topic talking about Kurt Russell and Stallone. But yeah, I'm super stoked we did this. We did it, Mike. Our first crossover of two previous Razor Rentals episodes, Escape from Earth and Cobra 2 Assignment Miami Beach. I thought we brought it to a pretty satisfying conclusion. I hope everyone
Yeah.
came along for the ride and enjoyed themselves. But yeah, let's wrap it up and get out of here. Don't forget to check us out, RaisBarRentals.com and at RaisBarRentals on the socials. Check out our back catalog. Not only do we have those two episodes we mentioned, we have a bunch of other episodes. They're all still available in the podcast feed, so go check them out. And also check out Rad Pantheon, super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, a whole art collective of creative friends supporting each other to help spread the gospel of rad stuff. So check out RadPantheon.com and at Rad Pantheon on the socials. Mike, you're in the Rad Pantheon. What do you have going on with the Boogeyman's Closet?
Well, I think by the time this episode comes out, I will have released Sinister 2. We're still kind of all over the place with our scheduling, but I keep promising Ghoulies 2. It's going to happen. I've discussed this with the boys over at Count Creepyhead, and they are going to join me. We're just
Nice.
trying to nail down an extra day that we can all sit down and record. Um, so hopefully that will be coming out as episode 230. But 229 will be Sinister Part 2, also with Corey and Brian from So It's Come to This, a Simpsons Family podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. And as I told you, offline, that Sinister episode that you released recently with Corey and Brian you joined, that was a great episode. And that's
Thank you.
one of those episodes where I haven't seen that movie, had no interest in seeing it when it came out. The trailer didn't look interesting to me at all. And so what happens with your Boogeyman's Closet episodes, if you put out an episode where I haven't seen the movie that you're covering, I have to make a choice to either like stop and go watch the movie so I can then listen to the episode, or do I just listen to the episode and like, spoilers be damned, if it sounds good, maybe I'll watch it, and if I don't, well, whatever, I'll just live vicariously through the podcast, and now I know what the movie's about,
Right.
And so with Sinister, that's what I was going to do. I was like, I'm just going to listen to the episode, and you guys were like so excited about it, especially Corey, because I know this is like a comfort movie for her. But the point is that like, yeah, it was a great episode, and you totally sold me. And even though I listened to the entire thing and heard all the spoilers and everything, I still am planning on watching Sinister this weekend because now I really want to see it.
Nice. I genuinely do like both movies. Sinister 2, I will say a little sneak preview here. I forgot moments of it, and there's some parts that I feel are a little convoluted, but overall, like, I still really enjoyed the movie. I think, I might be odd man out on that one. But I think both part 1 and 2 are worth to watch. Part 2 mainly for James Ranson, because that guy, he's such a good actor, and he does not get the praise he deserves. Like, every movie I see with him in it, I'm just like, I fucking love this dude. Like, he's just a really good actor. So highly recommend both. Sadly, there is no Sinister 3. But it's a fun little duo of films.
Nice. Well, everyone definitely check that out, and also check out Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where, let me see if I get this, 3 man-children talk about pop culture and Muppets. Did I get it right?
Pretty much. That's about right. Now with more Muppets.
Exactly. Yeah. So once again, thanks everyone for tuning into the Raised by Rentals program. If you had fun with us, visit us online. Drop us a line, leave us a comment, leave a podcast rating. Let us know what you think we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike. And I'm the ship's computer.
And we have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
Holy crap, isn't that Dirty Dancing's Patrick Swayze?
Hey, Patrick. Great horse.
Hey, Randall, I call the horse Ghost like that movie I did.